cut back to back. Oh, oh, just like that. I see a dub in my future stats. Oh, I know a place you can go. The doghouse outside my massive abode. It's lovely, it's cushy, and sometimes it's cold. Now sit and watch me get this gold. Oh, I just want it all. I just want it all.
is up, Fortnite family? It is so good to be back. I have missed you all so dearly. Oh, I've missed that music as well so much, man. Look, the road to Summit Land is on its way. We have Major One finally returning, and I'm not doing it alone. I have two amazing friends joining me here on the EU Analyst Desk. I'm joined by Takata and Reese, both making your return to the Analyst Desk. It's good to have you guys back.
It's good to be back. Look, it's the start of the season. I'm feeling good. I know, things can get a bit heated between you two, so I thought I'd situate myself here in the middle. But on a real note, I'm excited.
I appreciate that. I'll be honest though, I must say this desk is all wrong. Like we're all in the wrong slots. We all shouldn't be here. This is not the usual. This is not how it's going to continue, I'm sure as well.
While I would love to get involved in the madness that is you two, I'm going to take my hosting responsibilities serious today. And so before we get into talking about Heat 1, which we're going to watch today, it's been so long, I feel like we have to talk about the state of the region. So much has changed in EU, and I want to talk about it. It feels like we have a new era upon us, a new generation of stars dominating at the top of EU. And I feel like if you're talking about big fish who have come in and started to, take over the lobby, there's no bigger fish than Shark. I'm sorry, I had to throw in a pun here. Shark has had a meteoric rise to Car over the past year.
Yeah, I mean, look, his 2025 total earnings after the whole year, 62K. Now, in 2026, he's already at 45K. I mean, FNCS hasn't even begun, and he's almost matched his earnings from last year.
I'd be very surprised if Shark doesn't eclipse 100, 152. I mean, I don't want to guess where he's going to end by the end of the year. But of course, without the big seasonal tournaments, like he's not even played an FNCS yet, and he's already up there. I think he's just a great example of a player who started really young. You can see he earned $300. He was only 13 there, and now he's come all the way up to this point where he's 15, and he's just gotten better and better every single year to the point where he's, arguably EU's best player.
I mean, look, the list of young stars who have popped up has not ended there, right? When you look at the difference between 2025 and 2026, the likes of Chino come to mind, right? He's completely turned around his reputation from going from, a young prospect to being one of the best in the world.
Yeah, I mean, 2024 didn't make Major 2, didn't make Globals, then went into 25 without too many expectations of performing well, but finished as one of the best teams in the world. Now going into 2026, those expectations are high, but will they match them, Reese?
I mean, you've got to think so. Like, coming off of the momentum that they had last year, of course, like you mentioned, a second, a first in the FNCS majors, and then a seventh at Globals, which was, still a fantastic placement. It wasn't maybe what everyone expected because they were contested with Spawn. You've got to think that this year they're going to continue that onwards, right? This is, I was going to say, Chino and Pablo are basically now just established tier 1 team on the region. Anyone's going to say that they're almost guaranteed a top 5 in any lobby that they're in.
I think when you say an established tier 1 team in EU, there is no team that is more established right now than Sky and Scroll. Again, another duo that has completely toppled over the traditional apple cart of top EU teams and have rightfully taken their spot at the top.
I mean, the numbers say it best. Average placement of 4. They've made 8 out of 8 Div Cups. They've won Div Cups. I mean, they play the meta incredibly well.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good example of just the fact that sticking together for a long time can really get you right to the top. You look at some of the biggest names in the world, and a lot of the times they're just gatekeeping. They have strats, they have off-spawn, they have ways to get surge that we don't talk about too often. And, how do you get past that? How do you establish yourself as a tier 1 team in the region? You play together since February 2023, maybe with a little break in at the same time, and you just build, you understand, you learn the game together, and then you reach the top.
I think it's interesting, right? Because we've obviously seen a bunch of these guys, these newer talents come through and shake things up, right? That's just a small example of some of the ones that have really come into the fray. But a lot of these veteran EU players, a lot of our legends, the players who have won so many championships in the past, are now starting to trust a lot more of these younger talents, right? If we bring up a list of some of the, veteran EU players who are now playing with young stars without much experience, Takata, this looks ridiculous when you stack it up.
It's insane. Adding up the finals appearances from the legends here on the screen, it's 96 total final appearances, and the combined from their duos, this new talent is 8. That just shows the difference in experience, but I like to see it.
Yeah, I almost said 7 there. I'm glad you got my maths is almost very, very wrong. And, you know, then immediately you ask the question, why would some veteran players be playing with new up-and-comers, especially when you think about the gatekeeping that's happened with the best players always playing with the best players historically? And I think it's safe to say that all the players we listed there are not peaked. They're all slightly on a downward trajectory. Like, you know, you think of Tayson, he was the GOAT in Chapter 2. You think of Thomas HD, he's been around for so long, and he was obviously incredible by globals, 2 years ago as well, but he had a little bit of a stinky last year, and I think you could possibly say the same for the vast majority of these veteran players there. So I think it's given them an opportunity to say, you know what, I'm not doing so great, so let's find some of the newest up-and-coming talent. And I think for most of these duos, it's safe to say that this has been a very good choice.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a recent thing happening here on EU. I was thinking to myself, what are some examples of us seeing this in the past? And it brought me to NA. I mean, Reverse 2K with Daymero, even Peterbot picking up Poyo. I mean, Poyo was a West player, went to NA Central, now global champions, one of the best duos in the world. And it makes me think that EU is kind of starting to look a little more like NA in that sense.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. It is changing, Reese, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And it's changing, and you see a lot of these new up-and-comers, but I still think there's a lot of good examples of some of the best players coming from this exact scenario. You know, I go back to, like, Chapter 3, and I think of Aqua, who played with Veno, who then just went on to one of the biggest runs and one of the best players in our region as well.
Yeah, we have so many fresh stars, and so if you're watching EU, look out for the new names you maybe haven't heard of before. They might just be the best players in the lobby. 2 stars who I know are going to make today's games so much more fun to watch are Mini Miner and Taco, our casters for the day. It's good to see you guys.
Feels great to be back, Levin. It has been a long time coming, but Mini, we have so much experience. That is very obvious when it comes to the EU region, and I would be remiss not to include Pink and Sato as another one of those duos that's just brimming with a lot of experience and a lot of potential development.
Yeah, the guys just spoke right there about EU legends, EU veterans, and Pink has to be one of those names you have to throw into that mix. I mean, looking at the 2024 versus 2025 for Pink, not quite as much success when it comes to the trio format. Had a really good start to the year in duos, and of course, my brain thinks back to when he played with Vico, all the way back when. Vico was sort of an upcoming player, had a lot to prove, and Pink was one of those players that really developed him and really nurtured that talent to become the player that Vico is now. Nowadays, Pink playing with Sato, widely regarded as France's most upcoming talent, most quality of player that they can offer. And I think he's almost in a similar situation to Vico was when he first started playing with Pink. So really excited to see what this duo can do both today, of course, in this competition, but even for the future of a player like Sato, who still has so much more to bring. I think this is almost like a perfect partnership for his career to skyrocket.
Yeah, I wouldn't even leave it as exclusive to the France side either, because Pink himself has been very open about sharing the fact that he even feels Sato to be, you know, one of the top fraggers on this region overall. I believe, at one time he mentioned top 3. So it's exciting to think about this pairing and whether or not they're going to be able to manifest some success here today, because obviously everybody has their eyes set on making it into the finals here, Mini.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their drop spot on the map right now. They're sort of in between 2 of the biggest names. They've got Vico, Malabuka one side, Shark, Teeny the other side. Interested to see how they're actually going to manage their Storm Surge. Are they going to use those sort of low gravity effects in that area to try and go over to their teams? But there's so many more teams to break down, so let's go back to the desk to do just that.
Thank you guys so much. Look, Frankie couldn't be here today, and so I'm sure she will be so happy that they managed to weave Pink's name in there. You know, she's always excited to talk about Pink and whoever he's playing with. And so let's talk about some of the players who are playing in this lobby, because Heat 1 is going to be a fun one, right? Of course, we have 5 games today. 5 game winners qualify for the major finals, and then we have the 5 consistency teams at the end of those 5 games. And everybody in EU seems to be saying, boys, that Heat 1 is the big one. It's the most stacked one, and we have so many big name teams. I'm looking straight away at the top left. Vico and Malabuka, they're repping big. They're big boys in this lobby. What are these guys doing right? What can we expect to see from them today?
I think one of the best things we can see from these guys is just playing the meta that they're given, right? If you look back to their strat through a lot of the last season where they did well, they had a couple of mistakes they were making along the way, but they were always playing Storm. They were deep in it. They had this great strat where they could rotate through and basically skip all of the early game. And that's because right now, this year, we've not seen an FNCS with it yet, but there is the new net surge. So you basically need to not take damage. So a lot of the teams are trying to skip the mid game as much as they possibly can.
And what's interesting is they've completely changed that strategy from last season into this one. They are rotating early now. They're trying to stay in the zone and get there as quickly as they possibly can. They're pre-firing rotates, but it also means they are running out of mats and they have to look for a decent amount of refreshes. But hey, they had the highest average elims in the most recent Div Cup, the second highest in play-ins. So they are doing a good job, but it can be a little risky.
Look, you can't talk about this lobby without talking about Shark and Teeny, arguably the favorites to potentially win FNCS, depending on who you ask. And when you look at this lobby, one thing you have to say is that they do have a bit of a hurdle to overcome, but it feels like this team constantly overcomes hurdles, guys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Shark Teeny, look, if I think from the past season, there was a 6-0 against Huddy and Fishy. They left them in 50th, but the interesting thing is that in these recent Div Cups, there has been a bit more messiness. As you can see, they were triple con to be fair, but right when one player gets knocked, all the surrounding teams in the area, they kind of pile in to Wonky. They kind of look hungry to see if they can close it out. So I'm curious to see how it's actually gonna go today in Heats.
I could tell you how it's going to go. I'll tell you straight away, these guys are not winning a game, and that's through choice, right? They're going to be fighting off spawn against Hutty every single game, and I think 5 out of 5, they're going to be there doing the exact thing. Let's be real here. Whoever does good goes through to the grand finals. Shark and Teeny, best placement's going to be second, maybe another second, maybe a third second, maybe intentionally not winning. We'll see, so they can fight off spawn every single game. My prediction with these guys, if they do bad, they're going to go nuts off spawn. If they go good, they're going to go nuts. I think we're just going to see absolute show with these guys. If they win a game and qual through, consider me wrong. I'll be shocked.
I'm pretty much going to back you there, Reese, on that one. I think we can't not talk about the #1 seed, right? The team that won the play-in stage that was before this one, Thomas and Focus. We already talked a bit about Focus and how he's a new star to Qatar. What else can we expect to see from these guys here?
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, if you look at the duo Thomas HD and Focus, you'd think Thomas HD is kind of the star of this duo, but Focus almost takes that from him. He's tarping, he's IGLing this, but kind of the issue I see is the chemistry might not be there. They're both very good individual players, but it's almost kind of like the polar opposite of Sky and Scroll in terms of chemistry.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the thing about this team is they are both star players. They are both some of the best players on the region individually. Now, we did say Thomas was coming off of a not so great year last year, but it seems like this year playing with Focus, it all is going well. And I think as you alluded to well there, Taka, they are doing individually amazing things, the actual teamwork sometimes looks a little messy, but it always seems to work. And I think the good result of that is if you actually look at their placements in matches overall, across all of the 7 Div Cups that they've made so far, they've only won 1 game total. So out of I think it was, I can't do the maths on my head quickly, but 7 finals made, they've won a single game. So these guys are consistently making end games over and over, but one of them goes down and the other one clutches up a lot of points. So I think for today, we're going to see these guys just be one of those consistency teams.
Look, one of everybody's favorite parts about the play-ins and the heat stage is obviously the teams that can win games. I want a quick Hail Mary from both of you. Who's a surprise team you can see winning a game in this lobby today?
I'll be quick. I think Cringe Volko.
Ooh. Oh, that's a good shout, actually. That's a good shout, Scotland. Let's go. Truly Zynox, of course. They've been doing super good so far. Very underrated team.
I like where both of you are thinking. Plenty of talent in this lobby. We're going to see who can come through and shine. Let's hand it over to Taco and Miniminer to kick off the day.
Probably one of my favorite parts about this Heat 11, and I should say all of the Heats in EU in general, is that there is so much talent kind of just being captivated in every single one of these Heats minis. It's going to be very complicated to find yourself as one of the team-winning duos, or even just making it through consistency, because I'm even looking at the minimap. I'm seeing Yapko Panzer. I also really want to bag grease with that Truly Zynox take, but there are so many phenomenal teams, and it's crazy to think that we have to decide on 10 of them here today.
So many great names. There's a real stacker of a group, isn't it? Chari Kami as well, another big name in there that we haven't got time to mention at the beginning of the show today. Also glad that Reese mentioned Zynox there. Welsh represent. It's always nice to see some Welsh players in the lobby. We don't get many, so you have to give them a shout out when they do. But really, really excited about today's competition. It's a really nice mix, this format of players and teams that are going to get a victory royale. They go straight through to the major finals, and it also caters to those consistency teams as well. So although we have already had a season in this chapter, we've already had a lot of Div Div Cups, when you get FNCS in the mix, when you put those 4 letters in front of a competition, things just change. You never know quite what you're going to get. So many questions here to be answered. I'm super excited.
All right, there's always going to be, feels like the calm before the storm in all reality, because I know for these teams throughout the course of this weekend, even if you don't make it from heats directly towards the Major 1 finals, they still have the opportunity to try and take their chances through that last chance qualifier. But obviously, many minor teams would much rather wage their chances right here, right now, and Lobby 1 ready to go.
Ready to go indeed. Here we are for game number 1 of heat number 1. This is time, and this is the team's time to make their mark, to get their first step in towards our Major 1 finals, which, as we know, have even bigger implications when it comes down to the Major 1 summit. So potentially a huge leap for some of our teams here trying to make their way there. But lots on the line here, Taka. Lots of potential for some of these teams and lots of questions to be answered.
I think one of the first questions that a lot of people kind of had in their minds today is how are iDrop and Medius going to fare here at Dark Dominion? Surely going to be contested by Lunex and Wolvax, and things are getting off to a hot start all around the map though. Cryfalls eliminated. Valerie and Chuck will pull out on top of the gas station, but still, Mini, it is evident there is going to be some sparks flying throughout this first match.
Yeah, really nicely done from those guys right there. Just had to finish that fight super quickly, so nicely done from them. Of course, you see the players lurking around. One of those, of course, is Focus and Thomas. Big team in the group right here, so excited to see what these guys can do as well.
Yeah, Squibbly Shores, definitely a pretty well-renowned POI currently, but Valerie, after that initial kickoff start here, Thomas just trying to get some shots exchanged. The net surge switch up has been one of the bigger focal points, I think, leading into this season. So many teams just looking to try and establish their surge early on, but not take too many shots in return.
Yeah, so for those that don't know about that, it's basically just a net surge overall. So you want to be taking little damage compared to the amount of damage that you're outputting. So in other words, you want to do as much damage as you possibly can and ensure that you are taking as little as you possibly can, as well. As here is Focus and Thomas from earlier on. Riptides down towards the south. These guys are definitely a pick to potentially pop off today. The casters or the analysts talked about it at the beginning of the day, how they do have a little bit of this tendency to maybe make some solo plays, not have these coherent plays together. So very important to see how those guys can forge together today.
Almost surprised, though, to see Shark and Teeny not initially finding their prey of Huddy and Fishy. These guys have just been going non-stop between Huddy and Fishy. It has been a very frequent point of contention here at Wonkyland, and I have to agree with the Des very strongly. I am full-on anticipating Shark and Teeny to spend this heat exclusively trying to prevent their drop from being contested in the finals.
Yeah, we all saw what happened with them off spawn in those earlier Div Cups. I mean, Shark and Teeny were, of course, dominant, but you don't want to have that going to major finals. It's not ideal, so staying uncontested is absolutely vital, even for Vico and Malabuka up here at Frigid. A team that a lot of people have winning a game. They have so much pop-off potential. Things necessarily haven't been going their way this season when it comes to their, I suppose, potential compared to their output of performances. They've been good, but not great. So much on the line for these guys in order to prove what they can do. Everyone knows what they can do. Everyone knows the experience that they have. So lots of stuff to go for this team. And as well as Cami and Chari, this is a team that, you know, have a lot of experience as well. Cami, one of the most experienced players in the region in terms of Grand Finals appearances. So someone that you'd expect to be in the mix for Grand Finals.
Yeah, and they've had a relatively quiet off-season too, so I think that's probably one of the bigger reasons why you don't necessarily see too much of the spotlight heading their direction. But we have another 5 potentially brewing here at Battlewood Boulevard. Peasy. Kind of just waiting to see they're going to have an opportunity to lap back around, but for right now, Nero and Joshbot with primary control of the building space, so I think they'll have good opportunities, but the lurk plays continue. Ziffy and Jerdy, they might have caught Twigs off guard here. It's gonna be bad news bears for this Polish duo. And sure enough, Twigs immediately crept up on and just put to bed. That's an elimination for Dirty Enzy. They'll be happy to claim. And now, Nedek, he's got a whole lot to overcome here as a solo.
Yeah, really nicely played from those guys right there. Actually, just having that patience, just that trigger discipline to go for that 3-2-1. It's not difficult. It's not easy, I should say. It's very difficult to not just make a shot and just to get a little bit too eager with those shots, but combining really nicely there with that Chaos Reloader. Look out for that shotgun, of course, today as well. If you are watching Fortnite Comp for maybe the first time this season, that weapon in particular, lots of our pro players will be carrying it. Does super high damage, especially to the body from close range, and also reloads without you actually having to reload, so almost reloads in the background. So lots of our players will use that as their preferred shotgun. You saw it in action like that.
Yeah, and for Wheaton and Frizz, you can't help but notice Humble Hill is one of the legendary POIs chosen for this first lobby, so that's definitely going to be a pretty big benefit for them. We'll have to see how they circle back to it. For right now, Quick, Bambi, all these duos caught up. A little bit of action here, but it's actually going to be Midro who's left in a solo clutch situation here. Right now, Fizzberry Grenade making it very difficult for both of these teams to kind of get those final punches in, but Bambi is at least going to be able to confirm that first elimination, and I think for the time being, Adrix and Bambi, they're just content to take their spoils as is.
Yeah, important to win that off-spawn fight. Not as much loot as there was at Tip Top Terrace now, so that POI has had a little bit of an adjustment, let's just say. So slightly
Let's
less
call it the
loot winning
logjam
off-spawn.
landing.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, we've changed it up a little bit, which is it's always interesting, but interesting to see those guys, of course, now bounce back from that. Because of course, losing off-spawn, they're having to disengage and get the reboost. Not gonna be easy at all.
No, that's for sure, but so many teams. I know one thing that has definitely been explored pretty heavily by a lot of our lobby leaders. I mean, circling back over to Shark and Teeny, they are chasing Turtle, running for his dear life. Overdrive grenades can only take you so far, though, and Teeny, Shark, would look like they were going to be very adamant on pursuing Turtle. He will escape for the time being. So Latte landing, definitely brewing with some trouble, but Shark, Teeny, haven't had a chance to fully collect what they're after, and that could be a big part of the reason why Dexy, Frosty overhead on that hillside. Going to be a pretty strong deterrent there. Don't want to get caught out in any kind of third-party circumstances.
Yeah, smart disengage there, actually. A lot of teams, a lot of lower ranked players, a lot of newer players maybe to competitive would just try and W key that, try and chase them down, try and get the surge. It's very easy to almost get sort of tunnel visioned on elimination and then end up getting third party, but because they managed to disengage there, Dexy and Frosty were not able to find any shots onto them, and in this current surge meta, it's super important to not take damage as well as much as it is to do it. So really nicely done from those guys, and proving why they're one of the best teams in the region right now.
Happy scenes though at Cottonwood Boulevard. 2 eliminations means that things have been successfully cleaned up, and that's going to allow opportunity now to play a little bit inside the storm. They had ample amounts of pizza slices, so it's very feasible for them to make a little bit of a later rotation and kind of make more of that dead side approach.
Think Sahar and Seho, Sahar. I was going to make a pun there, but I'll hold my tongue. These guys are in the sort of same area which they're dropping, so they can easily refarm and have a nice position. I like this sort of play here from Ping, just refarming some of the brick or Sato's up top, trying to do a little bit of damage from up on top of that big surge base. We're going to see a little bit less of that, I anticipate, here, as we may have seen previously when it comes down to Storm Surge. A lot less teams maybe going for those huge bases as their only form of surge. Lots more potential W keying when it's necessary, because of course you need to try and do as much damage as possible, but also taking little is as important, as we've mentioned. And even playing Storm like a lot of teams are doing right here, and we're going to see a lot of this season. Lots of teams just trying to skip that mid game to not only avoid damage taken, but especially with those shotguns in the lobby that I was talking about earlier, it's so easy to instantly lose around 150 damage to an opponent in a box fight. So because of how strong they are, you just want to be avoiding that, and it's really nicely done from these guys, just playing in the storm and then getting on that dead side. It's good to see.
That makes sense for Blizzy and Heath to also still be a little bit wary of that lighthouse, knowing that that is a frequent location for Cammy and Hadi, and the amount of heals that they're able to collect there, it's pretty understandable to just anticipate they might still be lurking around. But for Yapko, Panzer, slightly different scenes here. A pretty elevated view means that they'll be able to keep tabs on everything that's going down inside of Wonky Land. You already see off in the distance there, Vico and Malabuka. So things could potentially start picking up around that Ferris wheel, and whether or not Panzer and Yapko are going to be able to profit off of it, it's a story that's left to be told.
See what they can do from there. It's going to be interesting when you get these sort of northwest pulls. Lots of teams can use that Ferris wheel to rotate if necessary when you get towards those later sort of zones. As makes for an easy sort of dead side positioning if they want to.
Makes full sense too for Focus and Thomas. Just keep themselves protected, but now with Cringe and Twi starting to encroach on their position, maybe a little bit of pushback opportunities. For other teams though, the Storm does still seem to be the more appealing draw. Although you never want to be one of the last teams in the lobby. You always have to worry about getting focused when you actually make it into that edge of zone. But a decent amount of heals here for Lunix off those check splashes. Shark and Teeny, on the other hand, still pretty deep north. They've found themselves a little bit caught up right now. Health, not necessarily where they wanted to be, but they have the fishing hole to rely on for the time being. I think the bigger question is whether or not Nak and D can actually choose to push this a little bit harder. I don't think that they would feel all that comfortable with trying to force this engagement against Shark and Teeny, but forfeiting the fishing hole, I think, could be a pretty big blow. Teeny and Shark, they just seem like they're intent on getting as many fish as they can, though, before they make this next rotation, Mini.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do right now. Just fishing is definitely an option now. It's sort of buffed a little bit as of late in terms of this chapter, so fishing is very much on the cards. Especially for teams that are looking to play that Storm, it's very, very possible. A little gift of a supply drop here. Vegeta and Maria. They're going to use it. Potentially not. Even know if they know it's there, actually. Are they aware?
Might be questioning whether it's safe to actually open up a wall to go for it. There was another duo very closely nestled by. So that could be part of the hesitation here, but Adrian and Vegeta, they'll sit tight. Twi and Cringe. Somebody's keeping tabs on where Vegeta's at. But we can see teams starting to become victims now to this net surge standard. If you weren't able to actually maintain your surge threshold, you're going to have to force some form of an engagement. And yeah, for Cringe Twi, they are well above the damage threshold. They're not too pressed, but Adrian and Vegeta, a completely different scenario. Their best option might actually be to try and force a fight with Twi and Cringe. They're going to have to jump into somebody's box soon enough. Don't think that they can just depend on the lobby thinning itself out, because Pixosi, Saren, also breathing down their necks. Adrian and Vegeta, strike now or never. You're using up every single one of your heals just to stay standing, and only 126 below. That's just a singular shot that they need to connect to get above that threshold.
And Zone's moving as well, so it's going to be really difficult for them to find that. And no, look at this, taking so much damage, so that number is going to continue to drop, as now they've got Surge to worry about, other players in the area, Storm to worry about as well. It's a nice shot, though, from Vegeta. Pixovsky finds an elimination as well, puts them just above, so that's a savior for them. Also inside the Storm, inside of this mist, so they're going to try and make their way in as soon as possible. But so many teams here that are low on Surge are trying to rotate in late. It's going to make for a little bit of a frenzy when they make their way in, because they're going to start to look for some of this damage. And even 54 above here for Pixovsky's team, they still need to find a little bit more in order to be safe, because you're not just safe by doing damage, you also want to take a little less as well. So if they do get shot at, they need to try and offset that with some damage of their own.
They've basically just been trailing behind Cringe and Twi's rotate, but now Pixosi, Saren hanging at the bottom of this hill face. Stuck here for the moment. Turtle and Cheeps, a refresh going to buy them some time also, but it's just not enough. Turtle and Cheeps aren't able to hold out. The lobby has claimed another duo. As more teams begin to pile in, the congestion is definitely starting to pool up here, but Cammy and Hadi, they've done a great job at elevating their position, managing to find themselves just a layer or two above the rest of this lobby. it seems like for a moment they might have had Teeny and Shark in their sights. They're at least fully wary of the fact that there are teams making their approach from that north side of the zone.
Yeah, nice position though from Cammy, just in the sort of center of the zone, able to look around and try and do as much damage as they possibly can if they need to. Giving themselves all the options as the zone continues to pull towards that north side. Pink and Sato 200 above, 0 eliminations for them so far, but again, you can see Pink just sort of leading the way, making sure to use all of his experience to just tarp them as close to that zone as possible. They're not quite in though, so going to have to invest a lot of materials here in order to do so. Now only 119 above, 130 above now as it's ticking over. They do have to be wary of that as they do make this rotation.
It's the constant jumps, though, right? Between 130 to 104. It's just too close for comfort. They're going to need to force a fight anyway. I believe that they are in dire need of some material if they want to try and close out for the end game and make a decent run of it. But Panzer, Yapko, a team that's living life a little bit more lavishly just outside where the thick of the mayhem's taking place, they are fully focusing in on teams that are already trying to duke it out between each other. And Panzer, Yapko, 635 above now on that surge threshold. They have the world at their feet. It's up to them to decide when they actually want to make their rotate. It's all about the positioning game for them. Same case for Thomas and Focus, doing a decent job at just managing their surge throughout each of these rotations. But this next zone pool, it's going to force everybody to expend a couple of these overdrive grenades, and the big part is just not getting tagged along the way.
Yeah, favorable zone pull for them there as well. Just pull to their side. Nice elimination there for Pink and Sato. Looks like they just about needed it with their storm surge situation. So that's 2 elims for both of those guys right now. But it's dropping, it's dwindling. The damage as the rest of the lobby is doing damage and they're taking some. They're only 1 above Taco. This is real dire situations for them. They just need to try and find themselves a little bit more damage to get themselves up and of course then make that rotation.
But at least it's still above. Sometimes that's all you need. Vika Malabuka also sitting a decent spot here. And the main thing for this duo is just making sure that they clean things up around the edges. They've had so many circumstances where they've had prime opportunities to, I think, lock things in for that perfect top tier placement, perfect top tier performance, and yet they've fallen short when they least expected it. But this is big scenes right now for Panzer Yapko. A little look back into a successful elimination they were able to find prior to their last movement. Cringe and Twy, though, they've actually opted to put themselves onto high ground for the time being. Whether or not they're actually going to be able to maintain this is a separate question entirely, though. Their material count is running a little bit thin, but they do have a good amount of surge here, Mini. And the bigger point is just making sure they capitalize on suppressing everybody else that's struggling underneath them.
I love zones that end up here at the sort of northwest of the map, tip-top terrace or ex-tip-top terrace area, because those trees you can actually build on from any position. So if a team wants to sort of shockwave or overdrive grenade up towards those trees, they can actually build and just reclaim height whenever they want to. So when you're on height, you always have to keep your eyes up here to make sure that nobody's going to do that to you, as Biko and Malabuka just sort of on the lower side of things. Cringe and Twy up above. Look at this. Thomas HD down. Focus having to clutch up. Is he going to be able to get the revive here? Thomas trying to roll on over. Pressure from so many angles. Lovely plays here from Focus just to hold off all of that pressure. And Thomas is able to make it back safe and sound. The problem is now for them, they're going to have to rotate pretty soon. But I think they're going to get this revive off here, Taco. That's really nicely done from them.
And they at least had enough surge to work with that I don't think they're going to be too hard-pressed, aside from just dealing with the duos that are rotating behind them. You got Dexy, Frosty directly underneath where Focus and Thomas are currently located. Cringe and Twy, they've also got their signs to go. Got to move on towards front side, overdrive grenade, but now looking a little bit slimmed out when it comes towards their mobility. They are going to have to depend on finding a refresh somewhere, despite the fact that they have so much surge damage. It is going to shut off for the time being. Now Medius and iDrop get a chance to check back in, see how things shaped up. They made it out of Dark Dominion, so that early off-spawn contest clearly not deterring them too heavily from making it into this endgame.
Here it is, though. Bambi and Adrix up on high. Really nice position for them. You can see extending out to make as much of that high ground theirs as possible. You see Focus and Thomas looking up right there, maybe having a look to see if they can claim it for themselves. But Vico Malabuka down on the mid ground. Really nice positioning from them so far. A couple of eliminations as well, but they don't have Bill's Taco.
They need the materials. They need to find a refresh, and you can tell that they are hunting for anybody that might be caught off guard inside of the backside of zone, but now Bambi Adrix, there's continuing to rain down from above. Vico's gonna be the first to fall here though. Malibuca, last slice of pizza, has been consumed, and now with 0 materials, he's gonna have to make this edit out. Hope that he can find a big shot. Pump going to come through for him though, and just a little bit of siphon materials. Every bit counts here. It's just one more lifeline. The placement points continuing to climb here because they need this now more than ever. They don't want to find themselves sitting through the entirety of these Heat's 5 lobbies, but for right now, Malibuca still trying to make it happen all by his lonesome. Panzer way up above though. Yapko and Panzer have decided to challenge Ajax and Bambi for height, and they're not the only ones hunting. Teeny and Shark right at the very end of it. Shots from overhead. Teeny gonna get the elimination onto Panzer, and one more time, Shark and Teeny continue to display why there's such a dominant duo in EU.
So high up, really nicely done from them, and now they're raining down fire on the rest of the lobby. Thomas and Focus back together as a duo after that clutch revive from Focus. Can they make their mark in this lobby? They need a refresh as well as they try and jump into the box on low ground. Can't quite find that elimination though, as Shark and Teeny just continue to rain down fire from up above. Shark having to make a play down here as well, just trying to apply as much pressure as he possibly can, but Thomas HD down on low ground, getting all sorts of trouble from different areas. It's absolute chaos down there.
But you can never count out Thomas. He's always one to be able to find something from nothing here. As Thomas just continuing to sit inside of the Flowberry grenade, but still, Thomas hasn't been taken out. Last 4 builds, and Prism gonna be dropped straight to his feet, but Thomas needs those closing shots. Finally, the Siphon gonna tick through. That's gonna be a big extension here for Focus and Thomas. They are cleaning through this low ground. Is now Shark Teeny from overhead, trying to see if they can cement this first lobby. We didn't think that they were going to play it out for the victory round, and yet they're trying to make their standard known here. Teeny and Shark, full control of height, but Focus, Thomas, they might have something else to say about it. Shark's gonna go down, Thomas gonna go straight up. Teeny now scrambling in the low ground, but it's all Thomas and Focus. Even without any shield, it doesn't matter. Thomas finding everything that he needed to, and he's gonna find the victory royale here in Lobby 1.
Wow, from the revive to the victory royale, they have done it. What an end game for those guys. They were a little bit scuffed there in the beginning of that end game. They had that knock from Thomas, but the revive came through, and oh boy, did they do that so well. Shark and Teeny, what a performance from those guys up on height. Hopefully a sign of things to come, but a great win from these guys.
Wow. I mean, look, I was ready to come here and just dunk on Rehab and just say, Rehab, you were talking all of this about Shark and Teeny not wanting to win a game, and out of nowhere, Focus just hits a crazy pump. We were bigging him up to Carter of how talented this guy is, how big of a star he is, and he showcased it so well here.
That's what I love about this duo. You know, we've talked about the interesting aspects of this team, but what I like is they're both kind of hybrid players, right? Despite Focus, you know, tarping for Thomas, he had, what, like 8 eliminations when Thomas had 1, and in the end, Thomas clutches up. Like, both of them can frag. Both of them have that hybrid personality.
Absolutely, you know, huge stars, and they play that fantastic. You know, the main theme that we've seen from these two players is the fact that they've been playing solos over and over. One goes down, they make a mistake, and you know, we obviously saw that there was a slight mistake early on where Thomas got knocked, but they managed to bring this back so well. The actual end game they played was so clinical.
The ability to recover is always going to be a valuable skill, and one that they will now get to show off in the FNCS Major Finals. The first game win, 1 and done. And remember, that was the team that was first in the play-ins, right? The first seed, getting out of the lobby quickly. Very impressive stuff. Do you think we're going to see more clutches like that, Reese? Are you expecting more high-flying moments today?
Absolutely, there's no doubt. We saw a couple of really interesting high ground retakes, which we'll come back to a little bit later, I think. But oh my goodness, huge performance from them.
It's what you'd love to see. Look, I gotta step back on my word. I was saying the chemistry wasn't there before. Like, I'm sorry, okay? They showed what they're capable of very quickly to kick off things today. A little bit of the highlights from Focus. This is what I was mentioning. Focus is not only tarping, he's fragging at the same time. Now, you know, this can have its difficulties, but for game 1, it worked perfectly.
Of course, and you know, we talked earlier on about how the fact that all these old legends, these established players in the region are starting to come here and play with the new up-and-comers, and it's things like this. First across, of course, the play-ins, and now first here. You know, so far, Focus has probably been the best FNCS player this season. You know, we're only one game into the heats, you know, coming across the play-ins as well. He's obviously putting on a show for us.
I mean, I'm just so impressed by these guys and what they've been able to showcase. And one thing that's going to be interesting to follow out now throughout the rest of these games is traditionally when we talk about game-winning formats, a lot of the time the conversation is about high ground, high ground, high ground. These guys did it from the low. We're going to follow that thread throughout the day. We have more games coming up. Quick little break and we'll be back. Wow, I mean, that first game did not disappoint. You always want to come into the heats and see the stars of the region, you know, battling it out, throwing punches before our grand final next weekend. And we got that with Focus and Thomas winning the game. But there were plenty of other big names who showed, you know, partially their best hands at times, other teams sort of fighting back. I feel like one of the teams we obviously mentioned at the start of the day was Vico Malabuka. We talked about, you know, some of the trials and tribulations they've had when it comes to the meta. And I feel like we also saw a bit of that in this game, Takata. Malabuka having to spend a lot of it solo clutching towards the end.
Yeah, having that kind of polar opposite playstyle from last season, where in this season now, they are going as fast as possible to the zone, rotating. They're not playing in Storm, but they actually ran out of mats quite quickly in this end game. But what's interesting to me is if you look back at the Div Cups, the best two performances from Vico and Malabuka were both solo clutches. One from Vico, one from Malabuka. And kicking it off today again with a solo clutch from Malabuka, I mean, it shows what happens when you put two EU Titans on the same team.
Absolutely. And, you know, as you noticed, while we're watching through this package of their match there, you know, when it got down to a solo, when Vico went down there, that was like top 20. And Malabuka was able to get all the way up to a top 5 here by himself. So unbelievable performance for both of those. And, you know, right now that's flown them up the leaderboards in the first match already.
Yeah, I mean, guys, we always sort of want to see teams have this consistency and this fluidity and this chemistry, but both of them can solo clutch that well, Takata. Should we be that worried about these guys?
Look, they definitely have what it takes. I'm wondering if they just want to get a bit of practice, and it's weird because when one player goes down, they just like the other just heats up, he fuels up, he gets like the energy from his fallen teammate and is able to power through the rest of the game.
Reese, we have to talk about Shark and Teeny. They held the keys to that lobby, it felt like, up on high, and they didn't quite open the door to the finals.
No, they didn't, unsurprisingly. I'm not sure why they didn't win this game, because I've never seen Shark lose one of those before. I felt like that was a little odd. And, you know, when I look back through, you know, all of the Division Cups, they have a 20% win rate in games. And you know they also have a 20% second rate. So you know what that means? That means they've actually never placed second in a Division Cup finals match before. And yet this is their first second here. I think that's strange.
Yeah, it must have been the wind. They were high up, you know, maybe pushed them off, something like that. But it's perhaps, despite that, as a reminder, you know, they did make it off spawn. They didn't fight instantly, and they were able to get high ground, get to the end game, and almost have everything in their hand. But, you know, they're going to be playing out the rest of the day. We'll see if that trend continues.
Oh, come on, guys. We can't. Reese, I ain't letting you do this, Reese. You're not hitting me with this Shark and Teeny ain't trying to win gimmick. Shark got pumped in the side of the head. He didn't even know where he was towards the end there. We got to give Focus and Thomas the credit. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I was going to say, I'm just going to add a little bit on top of that right there. You know, you saw that. That was an insane shot from Focus.
It was.
You know, from the right side of the zone, sprint jump max. I'll take it. You know, maybe Shark just somehow didn't know he was there.
Yeah, I mean,
got a couple more games to figure it out.
That's the thing. It makes me excited but sad at the same time because now they're qualified, right? They got the VR. They're already qualified through, and we're not going to get to see any more Thomas and Focus till the finals.
Yeah, look, we spent a lot of time talking about a couple different teams, but we didn't speak too much about iDrop and Marius, and they are two bigger names in this lobby who I think have the potential to make waves here. What do we make of their first attempt here in Game 1?
Yeah, I mean, they played well, and in terms of consistency, they should have a decent shot. I mean, it is 10 duos that qualify through consistency, so seeing how they were able to play Storm, control it, and hit their shots, I don't know, Reese. I want to see it happen.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of team where that this lobby should be easy for these guys. Like, let's be realistic. I think these are absolutely a grand caliber team. I don't think Heat should be any much of a struggle. And I think, you know, the first game, they already placed 4th with 4 eliminations. Like, I very much so expect that to continue throughout, you know, the rest of the games. It looked like they were going to be contested off spawn, but it seems like they've gone completely uncontested now in the mid-map. So, you know, if you look back through last season and the Divisional Cups this season so far, their biggest issue has always just been fighting a team off spawn. So now being uncontested, shown that they can perform in the first game, I think this is looking really good for them across the rest of the heat.
We'll see whether the lobby continues to shape up in their favor. Of course, we have one less team now in this lobby, and I'm super excited to see how the rest of the players react. We're going to send it back to Taco and Miniminer to kick off game 2.
Thank you so much, Levin. We are here now for game number 2. We've already completed game number 1, and it did not disappoint whatsoever. Thomas and Focus already booking their ticket to the Major 1 finals. It also begs the question, who's now going to be landing over there at Riptides, potentially an uncontested drop spot? Are some of our teams that are contested looking at you? Maybe Hutty and Fishy potentially moving on over. Who knows how things are going to play out? But that's the beauty of this format. When one team goes through, they're completely out of the lobby.
Yeah, I am very interested to see what team actually ends up heading over towards Riptides. Wouldn't be surprised to see more than one team, too, maybe trying to stake their claim for the remaining lobbies, Mini. But you have to remember, it's only 5 matches that these teams have to work with. So whether you have familiarity dropping at Riptides or not, maybe it's best to just try and replicate some of the success that we saw Focus and Thomas just have in Game 1.
Yeah, it was really nice from them overall in their game, wasn't it? Their mid-game was played really nicely. The zone definitely played in their favor towards that west side, but they still had a lot to do there at the end and prove why they're still one of the top teams in EU, especially since Thomas has yet to win an FNCS title. I think everyone in EU is rooting for him to win one eventually. So maybe, just maybe, this could be their time. But again, on the drop spot situation, you can almost do a bit of a double bluff where there's maybe 3 or 4 teams now that end up landing there, or maybe there's no one landing there at all. It's always really interesting to see how that goes down. But game number 2 is on its way, so let's get straight into it.
Heat 1, Lobby 2, and a whole lot of action already taking place in that first lobby. But the point has been made, Miniminer. Even with Focus hitting a really sick shot at the end there on Shark, you really do have to wonder, are Shark and Teeny super interested in trying to prevent Hutty and Fishy from actually trying to claim a little piece of Wonkyland here? And the Ospawn fight, it's definitely going to get aggressive, but not in Teeny's favor. He's going to get picked off from Fishy, who just managed to find a really nice line of sight there. Now it's all up to Shark. Is he going to be able to push back instead? Might just be a full-on disengage. Doesn't have a shotgun yet, so it makes sense why he doesn't want to get up close and personal. And I don't know that the Twin Hammers are necessarily what he wants to stake everything on.
Well, remember, I mean, if what Resub was sort of alluding to is true, where these guys are trying to play the long game here in these games, that kind of relies on them qualifying through consistency or very little, or at the very least, winning game number 5. So if they are having troubles off spawn, this could really throw a spanner in their works in terms of their plan, because now Teeny's fully eliminated. They're going to have to get the reboot here as Shark. And now Hutty and Fishy are going to have that drop spot to themselves. So this is almost a perfect, a beautiful opportunity for Hutty and Fishy X to actually win this game. They need to make the most of this opportunity as it has presented themselves. So golden chance for them. And for Shark, he's got it all to do here.
I'd still be worried, though, in the back of my mind that Shark is lurking around somewhere. But other teams might be able to actually play a part in preventing Shark and Teeny from recovering. We'll have to check back in with them later on. Cammy, Hottie, they're still chilling, doing their thing. They've had full control of Squeeze Point Lighthouse for a while, and no teams really seem to be all that interested in trying to pressure them super early on. So for them, it'll be typical scenes, I think. Just farm it up and then focus on the rotates.
Chuck and Velry, though. Bit of a fight here at Squibbly Shores. It's all starting to get a little bit heated at the shores. I'm sure Cammy will be looking over at this. Really nice shots from Chuck in there. It is. That's fantastic. Already turned the tides on that fight. Got the elimination, but I think there's another team lurking on by here, Take. There's another team rotating on through, so the fact they're able to finish that fight so soon is really effective for them. And now they can continue to farm up, but they've got teams to the north, teams to the east, and teams to the west. Velry and Chuck have so much in terms of damage, they don't want to be losing any here.
Very reminiscent to what happened in game 1 there against Ken and Cryfall. So Chuck and Velry, they've certainly been hitting the off-spawn practice, that's for sure, Minnie, because being able to find another pretty successful elimination right off the bat just means that they now have a little bit more opening here. And they're trying to confirm the rest, but the Twin Hammer lurk in the corner. It's still not going to be enough. Velry does get knocked, though, and the third party now is going to intervene here. It's been an exchange, but Adrix and Bambi just completely caught Chuck and Velry off guard. Really strong eliminations to boot here, and he'll be able to get the revive.
Oh, they just didn't check that building before they rotated in there, and they ran through, and what was looking so strong for them in terms of their off-spawn success is now just all come crumbling down. And even for Adrix and Bambi, this is not done and dusted yet. There's another team coming on through as well, so not only do they have that little bit of loot there for themselves, they're also going to make sure that another team doesn't come on through and fight them for it, but the disengage is going to be coming through there, so they'll get away with it. But yeah, really unfortunate there for Chuck and Velry, who started so strongly. Now they've got a solo situation, so they're going to have to try and find the reboot if they can.
It'll at least keep their heads on a swivel heading into the third lobby. You always have to anticipate that things are going to be under constant development when it comes to this Heat format, and especially knowing that there's only 3 lobbies technically left after this one. So Vico, Malabuka. While we saw a crazy solo clutch at the end of game 1 from Malabuka, Vico would obviously prefer to be by his side, but things are starting to heat up here at Frigid Fortress. Chris and Cactus gonna make it very difficult for Vico and Malabuka to just freely farm things up. They've actually interrupted their loot path entirely.
Yeah, it's a tough one there for Vico. Of course, you have to understand your surroundings so much when you are looting like that as a solo, but let's throw a bit of a spanner in the works for them, a little bit of a problem for them to deal with. This XQ and ES White on the southern side of the map, on Boulevard. Looking pretty strong, looking like they've got a really nice setup here for the end game. Already an elimination to their name as well, stacked up on loot. Big pots, chug splashes, they've got the mist as well. Becomes so valuable in endgame. We see teams even using it just to get a little bit of extra distance on their shockwave grenades or their overdrive grenades in the mid game. So it's really vital.
Saw a possible lurk that might be unfolding there for Pixossi and Saren, but a lot of these teams, as they make their way through their rotates, surely going to be trying to shoot the bushes, checking your corners. We've already seen how many duos have been punished just at the very start of these first 2 games. Cheeps and Turtle, though, they're looking to have much better performance here in game 2. They had to deal with some issues last lobby, Sharkantini, but now they might not be having to deal with that pressure given the little bit of catastrophe that took place for Sharkantini early on.
Yeah, I remember they had a Storm Surge issue, didn't they, in their first game, because of course they had to deal with Sharkantini, and ultimately that was their demise towards the end, was the lack of Storm Surge going down in the later stages of the game. So hopefully for them they can both stay alive and find that damage themselves rather than being chased, and I think that's why they're changing things up, but switching it up over towards waves and effects. So here these guys are opting for a bit more of a traditional approach with Surge, just making a base on top of the clock tower right there. Able to find a lot of people in that sort of area rotating through, so plenty of players to look at. And Panzer and Yapko, what a fantastic duo these guys are, a particularly exciting duo. Yapko is very experienced in this sort of format as well.
The quick stat says it all for you, right? Qualified for finals of the Victory Royale in all 3 majors last year, and now Yapko, Panzer, whether it's a Victory Royale or whether it's from consistency, no one's ever going to complain about locking in their seat on the battle bus for the Major 1 finals. But Dexy, Frosty, they've got a whole other world of problems to deal with right now. Dexy from the overhead, but doesn't get the shot that he was hoping for right away. Gonna have to use his last couple of splashes while Frosty looks to try and play a little bit of supportive measures here. But Dexy under so much pressure, Wurs now gonna take over the bulk of the aggressive front here. As Frosty continuing to wrap around, just trying to back up his duo. But only a couple of pizza slices on Frosty. Whether or not he's gonna be able to actually drop them from Dexy, but this is still much more of a stalemate than what had initially been intended there. Dexy just wasn't able to open up with that initial knock. that he was trying to claim.
Yeah, really nice work actually there from Frosty just to turn the ties on that fight. It was, of course, Dexy was so weak right there. Of course, got almost surprised, but Frosty did so well to turn that fight on its head and do all the damage. A really upcoming and exciting fragger from the UK. Excited to see what he can do both today and, of course, in his career, playing with a really experienced player. But unfortunately, going down right there, Dexy has the response. Verts needs to try and find a response as well. It's now 1v1 between Verts and Dexy. Dexy's going to be able to benefit off of that mist. He hasn't got the positional advantage all the way down there in the dirt. Wurz is just playing with him, finding the opportunity, but it's so hard to see inside of that mist, but it's not a problem for Wurz, who manages to clutch up in the end and make sure that they can stay in the game, but a little bit more messy than they would have hoped there, Taco.
This is definitely still going to cause a lot of issues here for Wurz and Xantifi. Sure, you come up on top against Dexy and Frosty. Sure, the reboot ban is right there, but Storm is already pulling in. Zone is moving. Teams are also on the go. And now having to play recovery farm for the net surge that they were also susceptible to from that engagement, it's just going to cause a whole different type of issue for this team as they move in.
Casper and Prism here. Long-standing duo. I feel like these guys are sort of like a knife and a fork. You just always see them together. I think they must live in the same house or something, because they always are in the same team. They're always a duo. You can't mention Prism without Casper, and I like that in a team. I like to see teams that have stayed together for so long. The analyst mentioned it at the beginning. Sky and Scroll, another great example. They just seem to be able to share those strategies and develop together instead of worrying about what their fellow mate is going to be doing with that information. Very central zone, though, as you can see on the left side of the screen. So a couple of players and teams playing inside of that storm. And for Casper and Prism, they do have to make this rotation in a good time. There's still that team in Zucky down below them. But it's all about timing now for them. Are they going to try and get as central in as possible? How's their storm surge looking? Are they going to try and get in deep, or are they going to try and play edge? To wait and see.
Yeah, good things take time. For Artis and Hero, they're definitely trying to force the issue right now up against Blizzy. They want another elimination. They're going to need to work with both of them ideally. Heath and Blizzy, though, seemingly in the driver's seat right now for this current engagement, but HP bar is not exactly where you'd want them to be. Blizzy's going to have to come to a halt here. Just take this opportunity to heal up. Meanwhile, Ortiz, he's going to find the opening shot currently onto Heath. That much of a shutdown. He's going to send other team scrambling here. And sure enough, that's going to be the end of it. That initial shot onto Blizzy and Heath. I mean, there's really not much left to be said here. Just two teams forced to duke it out, because when you have these elongated fights outside in the storm, Mini, you know that you're going to have a lot of issues just making your way into zone in the first place. So you've at least got to find some kind of confidence measures from big fights leading into it.
Yeah, and it's that initial shot, it's that initial risky play that you need to make as a fragger, and you need to make in those situations. You can't be spending too long in the storm, you can't be spending too long that far back from zone, otherwise your whole game plan, your whole timings just get completely messed up. So that massive play right there to knock Heath was a really, really nice one. And the sort of plays that can turn your game around, the sort of plays that you look back on and think, yeah, that was the moment where we actually managed to find a bit of momentum in the game. So you just need a bit of a risk tolerance there. You need to take those risks at the right time, and they did just that.
Other teams, though, still caught in little bits of a skirmish. 120 above only for Romix and Lethal, so that's going to lead them wanting to try and find some additional tags onto Golden, Cheesy, but they seem a little bit more preoccupied with just trying to create some space. Maybe a little bit of a lurk opportunity here. It depends on how Lethal actually chooses pan out of Battlewood Boulevard, but both of these teams relatively even in terms of their loadouts. They both have ways to sustain themselves inside of these early storm ticks, but when you move into 2-tick territory, Mini, that's usually a pretty clear indicator of make a decision, commit to either the fight or to the disengage and start rotating, because at this point you're just leaving your both of them are just going to be worse for wear.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, when you're in that position, you need to try and finish the fight as soon as possible, get back into the zone, so that all of your game doesn't get thrown off, because you take a little bit longer in some of your positioning and some of your plays and it kind of offsets the rest of your game. You spend a little bit too long losing, you spend a little bit too long in a mid-game fight, then you're late to end game, then you're getting farmed for Surge on edge of zone, then you're late, and it's just so much that has a knock-on effect. So it's really, really difficult to sort of turn your game around from that position. I mean, one way that teams will do it is just by finding a team maybe that's keying them, or they try and key a team that's looking a little bit weak and then just get all of their loot as they rotate on in. But of course, that's reliant on there being a team in that position, and it's really not easy to do at all. So for a team like Lunex who need to make their way in, they're just going to have to hope that there's no teams already set up inside a zone that could potentially attack them.
Campfire's going to buy them a little bit of time, at least away from that engagement that looks like it's starting to build. Thomas overhead for a moment, but it's going to actually be Cringe, Twy, Hadi, Cammy, just all kind of simultaneously trailing each other. Vico with a little bit of a lurk around here, gets a couple of opening tags. 76 above only. Frigid Fortress has definitely been very problematic just for them finding their opening surge. It's always a little bit difficult too when you're waiting essentially at your POI for the teams to start pulling in, and just knowing that they were challenged so early on by another duo. That could be a big contributing factor for as to why Vico and Mali find themselves much lower on the threshold charts than what they want to be.
Yeah, and even when zone just pulls towards your POI, it's can be quite difficult to get those Storm Surge tags when you're rotating along. It can be a little bit easier. You can find teams on that rotate. It's a little bit more difficult when you do pull zone like that, although you do tend to take less damage, so a different way of looking at it. Kyrian, his teammate here, just on the edge of this zone. They still need to make a little bit of a rotation here, Taco. It's not going to be easy for them. There's so many players in front of them, and it's still a ways to go. Even though it's not a long distance, there's still so many people inside of the zone, and when you're below Surge, like Jux and Dunex are here, it makes it even more difficult.
And even when you are finding yourselves just barely netting yourself slightly above that surge threshold, doesn't matter, because Panzer, Yakko, they're going to find truly on this last rotation. Another duo that was desperately in need of some damage, now going to find themselves surging very quickly upwards towards that 471 above the damage threshold, but now they are still caught inside of a lot of congestion here, Mini, so it's not like they're going to have any sort of freebie rotates from this point forward. Zynox also still lurking, and knowing that there's other teams heavily pressed, needing that surge damage, he might just be sandwiched between two duos as a solo, and that is worst case scenario, but he can maybe still make some magic happen here. Either way, Panzer, Yapko, they are not content with their current position, kind of just having to spread things out as much as possible, claim whatever space they can. They're definitely still hunting for more.
Nicely done here for Gotti and Kiri. We were able to find the elimination, and of course, when you're in this sort of position, when you're in this zone, you've always got to be looking at where that next zone is going to pull. You see Pink and Sato all the way up on height, and it actually does pull all the way back up the hill. So for all of those teams that are down below, that were struggling, that were looking and hoping that that zone doesn't pull all the way back up to that snowy area, unfortunately for them, they've got a bit of a trek up that mountain to make. And for teams like Pink, you'd expect it with the experience. They're in a really nice position to look down on the rest of the lobby.
And they're not the only ones. Teeny and Shark also very much taking up an aggressive position, just preventing teams from cutting through their elevation point halfway up this mountain face. Teeny, Shark just continuing to apply steady pressure. Kamihari gonna have some struggles here. Cringe takes a massive tag there, and that's just gonna open up the doorway now for Teeny and Shark to have a little bit more luxury for making their own play upwards. Overdrive Day maybe didn't send them as far as they were hoping, but they still managed to move forward, and Casper Prism falling directly into their clutches. A direct 2v2 that's going to go very heavily into Teeny and Shark's favor. That is a clean wipeout and a very big, I mean 5-5-5 for Teeny practically. This is the perfect position for this duo.
Casper and Prism trapped Teeny. They full boxed him on that rotate. You saw them with that overdrive grenade, but then somehow Teeny manages to turn it over, and there's another one, another player inside of the box. That's Vegeta that managed to find their way in their box. You don't want to get in that close quarters combat with Teeny and Sharp, because they will put you down, and that's their third elimination of the game, all in the span of about 30 seconds. This is what happened. Look, they full boxed him, but no, a quick turn from Teeny gets that 158 shot. Shark is right by his side to take out the second player as well, and there goes Prism and Casper in a matter of seconds, but it's absolutely bolstered Shark and Teeny.
That's the dangers of dealing with players rocking that Chaos Reloader. A big part of the reason why it's been such a heavily regarded weapon in this meta. But now Vico, Malabuka, still doing a little bit of a recovery tour themselves. 283 above the damage threshold. Still have a pizza box to work with too, and a good amount from that Chug Jug, but way up above. Lunex and ASP looking to try and make some claims on the high ground. They're elevated, but you've also got to make sure that you're preventing secondary hype from having opportunities to look at you. Panzer and Yapko, unfortunately though, they're not going to be able to stay standing on this one. These elevation shifts are just brutal for teams running through material.
And you can see where the zone pulls just down that hill once again. It's topsy-turvy. It's really difficult to manage when you're on that low ground. But with a team on height, that's the absolute dreamland situation for them. It's all about the elevation changes that make all the teams down below use up all of their materials. Vichari right now still got it all to do. Lower on HP, back with Cammy though on the bottom of the screen right there. And even Shark on the top right having a little bit of trouble making their way in. But all of those materials coming to play right now after those early eliminations. That's crucial for them. And you can see them just playing that front side really well. But for now, it's the team on high. It's Lunex and WX.
Oh, we're just comparing rags to riches here. Sharktini, they've got everything at their disposal in comparison to Cammy and Hadi, who are quite literally only working with weapons. But Cheeps, Turtle, they've decided they want elevation for themselves, and they're going to claim it. That Flowberry Fizz, the overdrive, going to take them surging upwards. And they've got an okay amount of material. Still would likely prefer to have more builds here, but they've been chopped. Mini, fortunately, they have a Flowberry Fizz, so they won't be eliminated from fall damage, but height completely topsy-turvy one more time. Turtle comes crashing down, big tags, but now the material count is a problem as Huddy, Fishy, that earlier success at Wonky Land, they know this is their best opportunity to prevent themselves from being victims of the Sharktini grinder.
And look who's on second height, Shark and Teeny. They need to try and suppress them as much as possible. It's their main opponents in this lobby. It's their main opponents when it comes to the major finals. If they make it there, could we see the 2v2 of all time right now? As Sheeps and Turtle did find their way up on high ground, but it's all come crumbling down for them as they now have only one player in the duo, I believe. So now it's all about Hutty and Fishy X. This is absolutely vital for them that they make the most out of this game. If they can win it, that will be huge for their chances here. But here comes Teeny inside the box. That's not where you want to find yourself, as there's an elimination already coming through onto Cheeps. Teeny and Shark making their way through these mid-ground layers. Shari goes down there as well. That's their 6th of the game. They're just an unstoppable force right now.
It's just a familiar sight, but Shark, he's going to be put down. This is worst case scenario now. Teeny has to go as a solo. Doesn't even have time to think. Can't go for the revive. He's going to be forced to play this one out as a solo. And Huddy, Fishy, they're still so healthy. They're on height. Medius and iDrop, though, they seem like they're really making a serious control play through these mid-grounds. No one has managed to run into them just yet. It might be Teeny that falls into their clutches if he's not careful. Midro now towards the back of their tunnel tart, but Midro is going to be able to still create some space, just taking his time, but he has to follow the zone. He doesn't have any options here. Jumps forward. Teeny has been claimed, though. Medius and iDrop, they're going to be the ones that try and take over in these low grounds as the elevation continues to pull down. Huddy, Fishy, they'll be forced to drop.
Yeah, the zone has actually pulled back over all the old builds, so for the low ground teams, they have a bit of space. For the high ground team, for iDrop and Marius, they're continuing their absolute domination here on the mid to low ground layers. That's a huge refresh for them to keep them going. For Hutty and Fishy, they're needing to try and find their way down as soon as possible now as well, as now it's down to the top 4. One solo, Twine Cringe in the mix as well. They've still got it all to go down on this low ground, but the elevation changes aren't going to be easy for them. iDrop hits a huge shot, having to retreat as well, as Marius is still there too. iDrop goes down and Marius has it all to do on his own. Cringe is on the other side. Marius can't get his shotgun reloaded, so he's going to have to drop all the way down. It's absolute chaos right now on low ground, where Hutty and Fishy are just able to rain down fire from up above.
And Fishy and Huddy, they're just so healthy. They're finally going to start to make their descent here, Mini, but I believe the damage has already been done. Matty is just so incredibly low, hardly had any materials to work with. It's whatever he could siphon off of Mitro's body, but Fishy, Huddy, they're going in for the final blow here. The victory royale right at the tips of their fingers nearly slips away, but Fishy will find Mattias despite a well-placed shot there at the end. It doesn't matter. Wonky Land, it started off hot here. for Huddy and Fishy, and they're going to be able to capitalize on that opening sequence, Minnie.
I mean, what a story. Hutty and Fishy, they needed to make that game count. We know that they're the inferior team when it comes to off-spawns based on history against Shark and Teeny. They had one win off-spawn the second game. They needed to make it count, and oh boy, did they do just that. Now it might be Shark and Teeny unconned. Who knows? We'll see what the analyst does think.
Well, that has thrown a massive spanner in the works for Shark and Teeny. If you are a Shark and Teeny fan, you won't be happy with that conclusion. But if you're a Hutty fan or a Fishy X fan, you will be jumping to the moon. That was the game they needed, Reese. I mean, it couldn't have gone better for them there.
Literally could not have gone any better. Looking back at their play throughout the last year, well, this year, they haven't had a single win in Divisional Cup finals. They've not had a single top 10 in Divisional Cup finals. And when it matters, they pull out the Victory Royale. Now, this is so important, not just for today, but as you mentioned, for grand finals, because the biggest team predicted to win, as we've talked about at length, as everyone's talked about at length, is Shark and Teeny. And now coming to grand finals, they will almost definitely be contested by Hutty and Fishy.
This is going to be interesting. Only to add on to that, Reese, they literally got 50th in last season when they got 6-0'd by Shark and Teeny. Now, if Shark and Teeny make it, which is basically, you know, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but if they do, we're going to have a fun major finals.
I mean, guys, we were talking, right, during the game, during the off-spawn, and I said to you both, I was like, the most ironic outcome for Shark and Teeny here would be us all bigging them up, hyping them up, talking about how, you know, they're not going to win a game so that they can make sure that their competitors don't actually win a game, just for the competitors to sneak through and win a game, and that's exactly what ends up happening in the game, Reese.
Yeah, it's really funny because, you know, we were watching that end game and it comes down to it, and you see that first, Shark and Teeny are looking scuffed. Remember, they did go down off spawn and get the reboot in. They got a bunch of refreshes to get back up, and it looked like it could be a potential 2v2 between both teams. And I was like, what if Shark just throws it? And then the team they throw it to ends up being Hutty's team, and they go through. Obviously, it didn't need to go to that anyway, because Hutty and Fishy played that fantastically, but it would have been funny.
Well, look, we have so much to look at as far as the leaderboard is concerned, so we're going to go to a quick break, and when we're back, we'll break all the action down from that game. After a surprise second game win from Hutty and Fishy, we have to talk about where that leaves the rest of the lobby. And I think we have to start with their off-spawn rivals, Shark and Teeny. Unfortunately for them, right, doing great on the leaderboard as far as consistency goes, right? Obviously, those top two players have won games, so they are first in consistency in this lobby, Takata. And I guess the silver lining is now they're uncon off spawn.
Yeah, I don't think the first is going to last long. And I'm not saying it because I don't think they're going to make it. I'm saying it because I think they're going to win a game, and it's going to be quite soon, Reese.
Yeah, even if they don't win the game, like, they have all the potential in the world to. I think if they just manage to get some points in this, they've probably managed to qualify through in consistency. Anyway, it's, you know, 10 teams who make it through. They're first by quite a large margin. They're ahead by like 70 points already. So for these guys, like, being uncontested up spawn, this should almost definitely guarantee them to qualify in this next match.
Yeah, what impressed me too is there was a moment, because I believe Teeny had to get rebooted. They were at like 50 above Surge, and in the span of 1 minute, they were 800 above Surge. It just shows how dominant this duo is in terms of fighting. It's honestly impressive.
I mean, looking at the highlights from this game, both of them were showing out. And look, I know I'm not the analyst today, right? I'm just the quiet
the wrong
host.
seat, man.
Yeah, I clearly am. But I do have to say, their playmaking ability is just next to none. Shark and Teeny just pull things out of nowhere. They're going to be a fun team to watch for the rest of this lobby. We have to talk about the team next beneath them. iDrop and Marius in 4th place, second on consistency so far in this lobby. I guess they've been a bit of a surprise, you'd have to say, Takar.
Yeah, I mean, leading up to this in the Div Cups, I wouldn't put them in a top 3, even a top 5. And then now back-to-back 4th place, 2nd place, 5-4 elims. I mean, they're, in terms of placement, more consistent than Shark Teeny. Obviously, not as much eliminations, but with the shots that iDrop was connecting in these final moments, I'm excited to see how it plays out throughout the day.
Yeah, these guys are the potential team. They've just not really been able to put that into practice yet, right? Throughout most of the times, as we mentioned earlier, they've been contested off spawn and struggling. This time, uncon. And I think watching the end game, I was a little bit more moved there by some of the clips we've seen, right? A lot of the times, you know, you see players panic in end game, but I really love what I saw iDrop doing there with the nice right hands, taking super safe peeks, not doing anything too bad. And that's the kind of stuff you've got to do if you want to make it through to every single end game, right? They've had a second and a fourth now. That kind of consistency just doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah, I'm sure Fredoxy's somewhere out there hate watching and really upset with how well iDrop is currently playing with Marius by his side. Guys, again, both of those teams looking really, really impressive. But again, we're seeing even more from some of these teams here. Again, if we look at the standings, is there anyone that's popping out to you as a team we need to really start to watch out for here going into these last couple of games?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of interested in what happened to Vico Malabuka. I mean, also Cringe Twive's been impressing me on his placements, but Vico Malabuka specifically, the zone in this last match literally pulled to their POI. The issue is they got, like, what, 15th? So they didn't make it too far into the end game. We've seen that they kind of go for refreshes early on, and I'm wondering if due to the zone pulling to their POI, they might be more accustomed to like rotating through their tags, and it might have been a surge issue. I'm not even sure what ended up happening, but I would have thought they would have got a better placement with a zone like that.
Yeah, so I think what ended up actually going on there was the fact that they ended up running out of mats, but you did see there in the refresh, they got a nice refresh. They did a clinical Malabuka play, which was a pre-edit. You always see it. It's just every single time, going back to like, what, chapter 3, they're just known for the pre-edit plays. They got a nice refresh, but the problem is because they demand to get so many refreshes, so many fights, because they use so many mats, they were so low, that puts them in the backside of the zone. So when you're stuck at the backside, you have a rough rotate to go to the front, and we saw there they tried to go straight forward, stuck into someone else's box, and it just didn't work out.
Cause for concern potentially, Takata, with these two now?
Look, I'm not concerned. The thing I'm more concerned about is in the major finals if we get there, right? You know, this is heats. I see Vico and Malabuka as a duo that's much more capable than to qualify. I want to see how they perform in the major finals. So let's see throughout the day if they fix those kind of little risky mistakes that they're having.
You're saying throughout the day, Takata, they got to do it right now. We have game 3 coming right up. Taco, Mini Miner, take it away.
That's right. We only have 3 matches left to work with for our duos here today, Minnie. And there's certainly some very noticeable teams that aren't even within that consistency qualifying threshold. So the fire's got to be lit underneath them currently because they don't have a whole lot of time left to work with to make something big happen.
Yeah, it's now or never. I mean, really, you know, you've got to make these next 3 games count. You could be thinking in the back of your mind, oh, we got last chance, we got last chance. Think about all the great teams that haven't qualified through to heats. So it's really, really important that they take the most of, or make the most of this opportunity and take their ticket, if you like, into the major finals. I think there's a few teams that I'm expecting to get a win still that are still in the lobby. And even for Hutzy and Fishy X in that last game, what a shock, what a narrative, what a story that really was. Sort of looking at Shark and Tini saying, yeah, they're playing the long game. And then the team they were trying to play it up against actually ends up winning the sort of half off spawn and then winning the game. That's what this game can do. And now what do Shark and Tini do? I think that's my biggest question here. Are they going to just go and win a game here? Are they going to stay in for more practice? They're 3rd on the standings. I don't think they'll already mind.
I mean, we'll find out momentarily though, because game 3 underway.
Game 3 is underway as we hop back on board the battle bus. For an important game for so many teams, I think this is the point in the tournament now in the heat where you want to be sort of evaluating your overall standings, not just literally on the leaderboard, but also where you stand in terms of your overall gameplay. Are we looking for a victory royale here? Are we looking to try and play a little bit more safe and try and go for those placements? We shall see. And again, big question's going to be now at the Wonky Land POI. I assume it's going to be Shark and Tini uncontested, but we'll have to see. And it looks like the whole situation here for Cryfalse and Ken is going to be an uncontested one, is it? Yes, it does seem like it is. So that's that fight sort of been seeing at the beginning of the games. Chuck and Velry were sort of in that area fighting them. It doesn't seem like that's the case right now.
Maybe they just weren't fans of how they ended up being third-party victims themselves in that last lobby, but still a quick grab and go for Cryfalse and Ken. They immediately try to encroach upon where Velry and Chuck are fixated. Panning back over to Wonky Land. It's just going to be Shark leading the charge. kind of hoping that they're going to be able to get some quick success here, Mini Miner. While practice is great and all in a Heats format, I would imagine that these teams would definitely prefer to just have their spot locked in, good to go. It's no longer about trying to prevent anybody else. I mean, your arch nemesis has already found their battle bus seats for the final, so you may as well just see it through if you can. It's not going to be a walk through the park by any means. There's still a lot of great contenders in this lobby.
I suppose they almost want to still stay in the lobbies for as long as possible, because if they were to win this game, for example, then another team that maybe is having a bit of a tough time, somebody else, right, is going to land over at Wonkyland. They find some success there. They go ahead and win the game. Then it turns into a situation where they might want to land at Wonkyland for grand finals. So you want to make sure that you're having the most chance of success there as possible. So I do think they'll probably stick to their overall strategy, particularly since they're third on the leaderboard right now and they're first on consistency. No real reason to shift that, but definitely a storyline to keep tabs on throughout the day. And Pink and Sato also in a good position. But Focus and Nakalia right there, just taking down someone inside of that sort of area. So I think it was after Pink and Sato actually left, so not too much of a problem for that.
Blizzy and Heath, though, they're also trying to prevent themselves from being eliminated very early on. They got caught up in a fight in the last lobby that definitely lasted way too long, and while they were on the negative sides of that, the consequences obviously of being eliminated early on. 21 points. We are technically at the halfway point for our 5-game format here in Game 3, Mini. So the biggest takeaway is that some of these teams, they might start to feel like they've got to do something drastic, teams that feel as if they're too far away from being able to measure up on the consistency threshold. Well, go big or go home. It's all about the victory royale at that point. And so that could really, really be a tough circumstance, I think, for some other teams to overcome, because I am fully expecting some of these duos to just send it with no regard to what happens for anybody surrounding them.
Yeah, and I think that's particularly potent in this meta that we're in right now, because it is just so easy to make a crazy hype play, because you just get a miss grenade, get some overdrive grenades, chuck them both down, tally ho, hope you can get high, see how it goes. Like, it is a very much more of a sort of, you can just jump on height, and it is one of those sort of gung-ho metas when you can just sort of try it out and see how it goes. Even I can take height sometimes, quite luckily. So it's just one of those where in these later games, there are teams that maybe don't have as much experience on height that will just make a play for it, because it is so easy to do so if done at the right time. Here we go, then. Sneaky beaky. Oh, foiled in the back. Lunex and WX. We saw these guys having a good game last game. Up on a height, of course, got chopped down as well. And they tried to make a play there, but luckily for Anti and Metal, this is a good situation for them that team was actually able to follow their plans, because that could have been a bit messy there.
Yeah, but Lunex and Wolvax, they're not out of it just yet. They're still being a little bit pressured here. 2 different directions as well. Rip Tides, though. This is part of those mid-tourney developments that you expect to see. But Shark, Teeny, they're going to get aggressive right now with Pink and Sato just outright barreling down onto this box fight here. But Sato doing an excellent job at just helping to push them back. The material count just a little bit thin here, though, for Pink and Sato. And Sato actually going to find himself eliminated. Shark just gets the better end of this young Fragger debate. And currently, there's nowhere left for Pink to run. So Shark and Teeny are going to force that early departure. They've had Wonkyland uncontested. They just didn't like the way that Pink and Sato were looking over.
Yeah, that was a really nice play. I mean, that sort of almost epitomizes and showcases what this new sort of wave of Fortnite is about. Some of the more successful teams are 2 fraggers. And that's definitely the case of Shark and Teeny. For Pink, losing Sato so early on in that fight, it was not an ideal situation for him. Clutching up on your own is really difficult regardless. Clutching up against Shark and Teeny on your own is a complete other question. And, Anti and Metal Bicep right here. We just see them Go down on this south side of the map, looking to almost turn the tides on what was happening earlier on with the sneak play from Lunex that didn't work out. They're playing the Storm. Lots of players will be trying to do this. It's all about having the whites, having the plan in action in order to actually make this happen.
Well, this duo is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting if they want to find their success in Heats 1. Panzer and Yapko, though, already taking over a little bit of control by the vending machines outside of Sandy Strip. Have to remember, from that overhead view, Painted Palms was one of the legendary POIs in this match. So for Yapko Panzer, that could be a pretty huge benefit. And whether or not they're actually going to be able to make do with everything that they were given from that starting point, now would be the time for them to really kick things up a notch, though, Minnie, because 40 points on the leaderboard, they've definitely got to go for a pretty huge amount of placement points, if not a win.
Yeah, one of the more experienced teams in the lobby, though, so you'd have to imagine that they can get it done for Lunex and WX. This is where they've almost turned around. They said, hold up, we're turning around and we're actually going to finish off this fight. As they're finishing off what they started earlier on, they tried the sneak play, didn't work. And the other team always came back for seconds, but Lunex and WX just proved why they were trying to make that sneak play in the first place, to try and get all that damage. Now they've got some loot to boot as well. They are so far back, so interesting to see how they actually manage this rotation. A couple of overdrive grenades in their inventory as well. So it's not a terrible position to be in now that they've got that surge damage. Of course, they're not going to take too much damage now they're back in that storm, so don't mind that at all.
Zippy and Jerdy, though, this is an exciting duo just because of where they currently sit on the leaderboard, Minnie. 98 points. I mean, doing an excellent job at finding their rhythm for consistency in today's competition so far. But the main thing is you want to make sure that you also finish strong. And for a duo in this type of position, it becomes really difficult, I think, to you don't want to overanalyze the choices that you are making. You don't want to find yourself, you know, getting a little bit out of pace because you just think, man, we're this close to qualifying for the Major 1 finals, and then it all falls apart at the seams, right? So it's just about maintaining that consistency, and it can be difficult because there's just so much pressure, I think, riding for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, especially for someone like Ziffy, who hasn't actually made a grand final before, has maybe not been in this position where you're on the cusp, you're in the position to do something that you've never done before. It's for players like Andy and Chari, they've done it, they've been there, they've done that. They understand what to do when they are so close, or even when they're a bit further down. They understand how to manage their emotions from a personal standpoint as well. They just understand what to do. Whereas for a team like that, where you do have that slight inexperience, it can make things a little bit more frenzied. But for Teeny and Shark, they are not stopping on their endeavor to just plow through this entire lobby. It's so important for them to, of course, get through to the major finals, which I'm sure they will do. It's just how are they going to do it? It's going to be the question. Cisse on the other side right here. Shark and Teeny both trying to navigate and clamber up these stairs. Cisse actually able to get away here, just about trying to make his move, but Genie is right on top and finds the elimination really nicely as well. Nice cone in there, just preventing Cisse from having any exit. And that's Shark and Teeny doing what Shark and Teeny do best.
I feel like I'm watching a Shark and Teeny like rage montage currently after seeing Huddy and Fishy fall through, especially knowing that it's just because of things going a little bit sour in one lobby.
Wow.
One critical moment is all it takes, and now Shark Teeny, they have just been relentlessly aggressive. I mean, it starts with Pink and Sato, and I don't think it's going to end with this most recent duo either, Minnie. I am full on expecting Shark and Teeny to just continue trying to rack up as many eliminations as they can muster.
I mean, an unleashed Shark and Teeny like that,
right.
that play is scary, right? You know, the ability, the confidence they have to make plays like that, to overdrive grenade plus mist up onto height and then take down the player on height and then just chase down Cisse no matter what. That's the sort of team that you do not want to be coming up against. So as much as it's going to be exciting to watch, the other teams in this lobby have definitely got to watch out for that, as we get to see Teeny and Shark doing it again. Every single time we switch to Teeny and Shark, it's a replay or a highlight or just them getting another elimination. It's like, do they ever stop?
At this rate, no. The only way it's ever going to stop is if they find themselves with a far zone pull, but with the way that things are shaping up, many that does not seem to be the case. They are on a full crash course. Everyone else in the lobby likely seeing that elimination feed continuously light up. So the last thing you want to be is directly in their route path, basically.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to gauge which direction they're actually going to be coming from, as Medius and iDrop just getting some nice shots assembled there. But at the same time here, Mini, they've been doing a great job holding things down for consistency.
Yeah, another couple of really experienced players. I mean, iDrop's one of those players that always seems to make it to major finals and grand finals, but doesn't quite have the performance that maybe sort of bigged up to have at the beginning of the season, and looking so sharp, looking so strong at these stages of competition. So I'm really hoping, if it isn't in this major, for this entire year, just to see a different side to iDrop, where he is starting to dominate slightly more in the major finals if they do make it there. So excited about that duo, excited about the potential that they have. Of course, Marius is one of those players that we just know by now. Of course, he's been through that whole up-and-coming fragger, up-and-coming player phase, if you like. You know, he's very much cemented in the furniture of the EU region right now. We know what to expect from him. Likewise with VK. Malabuka, they've had their ups and downs this season. They've had some trials and tribulations, if you like, but it's definitely not understated how talented both individuals are. We saw it in that end game, even just trying to recycle and trying to recover, I should say, some of their games. They just have those pre-edit potentials, pre-edit opportunities that we know Malabuka for. So that experience can play so vital in these games. It's Casper and Prism also still together in a nice position. Cheeps and Turtle, who had a better game in that last game, still in the lobby here as well. Nice shot onto Xantify from Turtle. Can he find the second? He can't quite. Xantify still getting health from this mist. Pretty difficult situation for Xantify as he's now down to HP. Turtle looking a little bit weak as well, and yep, down to the Storm. So it's a 2-tick. Was trying to drop into the box, but Cheeps shuts him down. And Turtle and Cheeps are still in the lobby, thankfully, after some great heroics from Cheeps. Not going to be easy, though. You can see where that zone's pulling. It's going to be a 5-tick when this one closes. So they've got to get in zone. They've got to do it now. They're going to have to use this piece to try and carry that through as well. Not an ideal circumstance for those guys, but they did manage to win that fight, which keeps them in the game. Super important. Oh no. Arius and iDrop, 100 damage below the threshold. It's so important that they can try and find as much of this damage as they possibly can. This from them, yeah, they're just trying to find some shots. It's not going to be easy for them here. They're still 112 below, now getting tagged up by the Storm's surge, so it's not going to be a simple task, but these guys are two very experienced players here, Taco. They have what it takes, but they need to do it now.
They don't have any time to think about it any further. It's all about the action, quick and decisive. iDrop Medius just looking to see where they can manifest some form of a fight. The overdrive grenade, though, going to cause them to separate a little bit more than what they would have initially intended. Still only 40 below. Jug is going to keep Medius a little bit healthy, but they're going to be in tatters by the time they make it into this next edge of zone. It is now or never for both iDrop and Medius, and unfortunately the lobby seemingly taking notice of their position. iDrop not going to be able to survive. Got lobby focus, and that final tick of surge going to take him out for good, as now Medius, he will finally secure some tags, but at only 5 above, he's going to have to keep the ball rolling here. He's going to be able to at least collect the pizza that his duo left behind, but this is still tragic scenes all around Mini. They would have loved to keep extending their placement position on the leaderboard, and now as a solo, it's so tough.
So much momentum going through the day. That's a nice knock there from Marius. Not going to do too much damage for that first initial damage, but the finish is going to be good there as well. 331 above the threshold. It's going to be Marius's time to solo clutch. Can he continue to keep moving them up the standings? Because they've been doing so well all day. This was a really important game for them just to solidify their spot in that top 5 as much as they could. They go down now, and it's going to be all over for this game, and they're not going to get any of those placement points that they so desperately need. and all the other players down below on the leaderboard are going to be starting to catch up. So every single move that Marius makes right now just has that added level of importance as Vico and Malabuka are continuing their push in this game as well. They managed to find themselves a good amount of damage to stay above the threshold and find the heals as well.
But it's been the builds that have been a constant thorn in the side for Malabuka and Vico. Things still aren't out of the thick of it just yet either for this duo. That's a good refresh, but only 120 above and some change. They're going to need a lot more to work with here, or for the lobby to continue taking itself out as Media is still trying to manifest something. But Vico, Malabuka, one more time, getting a look back into what kind of catapulted them a little bit higher up here. Just a nice sequence of knocks and eliminations. Tarps on the receiving end of that, but still so much more left to drive through here as Matty is doing a great job holding down his position in the low ground. Shark and Teeny, though, they have 870. It just continues to climb. I don't even know why I pointed out Jerdy going to be another one of those victims, and Mini, we just highlighted Zippy and Jerdy trying to solidify themselves in a great contention spot for the consistency on the leaderboard. But this is a huge problem when you're dealing with Teeny and Shark just absolutely rolling through this lobby. But look at Medius go. Nothing seems to deter him. He is fully locked in to prove to the doubters that iDrop and Medius have got what it takes to make it through.
Yeah, these are the sort of solo clutches that can qualify you to the major finals, and Marius is doing just that, just on the cusp of those placement points. So every single placement point that he gets right now is going to be so valuable for them. Cammy here and Chari just playing the backside of the zone, trying to get as much of this damage as possible before they then go ahead and make this rotation. You can see them just 250 above the threshold. They're just trying to do as much damage as they can to not have to worry about it. But look at this, Shark down, Teeny clutching up, gets the knock and gets the full elimination there onto Ziffy. And try and pull out the revive here as well. 7 eliminations for this team so far. This is the first time we've seen them in this game where they had a little bit of a wobble. It looks like they're going to be able to find that revive, and that's going to be crucial for them to continue plowing through this lobby and finding all the eliminations that they are. Doesn't seem to set them back too much either, and now Cammy finally uses that overdrive grenade to get towards the front side of zone and use all of that, all those builds that they were able to get from there.
But Cammy and Hadi are definitely feeling the pressure squeezing in on them because they are not in a very set position right now on the leaderboard. Mattia is still, as a solo though, just barely ticking above the surge threshold, but he's got a fairly solid loadout to continue climbing, clawing his way up those placement positions, just trying to stay tucked away, out of sight, out of mind mentality. And Sharktini from the knock revive now taking over the high ground entirely, completely stacked. Everyone else underneath them has to be on the lookout because they are just hunting. They're absolute fiends in this lobby right now. Medius, if he's not careful, if he overextends for just a moment, he's gonna find himself a victim unless he connects some nice shots. But playing through from the backside of zone, now gonna move towards front side. Will be forced to drop a layer soon enough here unless he can manifest some kind of refresh, but it is just a tough position.
This though from Shark on the top of the screen, just absolutely going ham over there. These guys are the most well-equipped team right now to play high ground because they've got about 4.5 million eliminations in this game. Coupled with all the materials that they're now getting, Shark's just on a bit of a frenzy. He's just having fun as Teeny's just holding down the fort up on height. Shark's just fragging out down below. Marius though, needing it all to do, done so well so far. Able to pop some Peter and get his way back inside of the zone. Decent amount of materials as well to try and play these mid-ground layers. This is all where it counts though for Marius, getting pre-edited on from another angle. He's got to try and disengage and find another layer, which he does, but he's got to be so careful here. At every move he makes will just make sure that they can continue to stay in this game. Every single placement point that he gathers will continue to push them higher up in the standings. But he's doing so well so far. Sacco, this is so well done from Marius.
But now height overhead, looking down. Media still making it happen though. Has a few more pizza slices to work with too. Backside his own one more time. He continues to kind of nestle his way in here, but Shark, Teeny, we're already hitting double digits here, Mini Minor. This is very reminiscent of seeing their off-season performances. Teeny and Shark just making it look too easy right now. Hadi, Cammy, no materials. Medius, hardly any HP left to work with, but he's got that mythic pomp. He might be able to find another siphon to work with. This Shark, Teeny, they just continue to decimate the entirety of this lobby. Another one onto Pixovsky, and now Teeny, Shark, they have no intentions of slowing down.
don't. Now it's Teeny that's fragging out. Shark now getting on the wall as well, trying to hop in the box. Perceives on the other side, just breaking all of these weak builds, trying to find his way through. Edits come through as well, not able to connect with the shot. They want more. They're not happy with double digits. They want high double digits to Teeny and Shark, as they're now just infiltrating the rest of the lobby down on low ground. Really nicely done from them, as they're just continuing to rain down fire here. Top 5 situation, or top 4 situation, they're the only duo.
But look at what Marius has done this entire time. You wouldn't think that he'd been a solo for so long, and sure enough, Teeny, he'll actually find himself getting knocked. Marius doesn't have any builds remaining, but he might be able to collect the siphon. That could be the difference maker. He's now trying to circle around, see if he can pinpoint exactly where Shark is at, but Shark, he is on the run, but he's not going to be able to make it. iJump and Marius, forget about the consistency game. It's all the victory royale.
And a solo clutch from top 33 or whatever it was from Marius. That is absolutely huge for them. We were talking about it. We were saying, yeah, he just needs to try and squeeze out as many of these placement points as possible, retain their spot there in the sort of top 4, top 5 situation where they were. And they only go and win the thing. Unbelievable stuff for Marius, and that's what you need to qualify to the major finals. Analyst Desk, take it away.
Thank you so much. An unbelievable call from our two casters there. And what a moment for Marius. Again, these guys have sort of been labeled the potential man team, it feels like, Reese. A lot of the time, we expect big things from them. It hasn't quite happened. And today, they have put on a really impressive showing and now winning game 3 to just secure that spot in the final.
Unbelievable. In particular, the fact that Marius literally did that by himself for the most part, right? iRob went down. When did he go down to Cat?
33rd place.
That's
and
wild.
Marius wins the game.
Almost won. Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, when you look at these two and how they've been playing, I mean, I guess you can't really say you're too surprised with how their day's been so far, Takar.
Yeah, I mean, we thought they were going to be contested originally, ended up being on-con, especially after Thomas got the VR and their contesters went to their drop. Other than that, though, I mean, I love to see them in the finals, clutching up the win from your teammate going down to 30, or going down in 33rd is ridiculous. Like, the moving zones hadn't even begun. Almost the end game hadn't even begun. He lost his teammate, and he clutches up all the way to the win. It's insane.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to actually know how this ended up happening, right? Because you saw this game started pretty poorly for them because they were below Surge. For the vast majority there, they were struggling, and they were at the backside with a max zone pool. It's basically the worst scenario you could get in a game, especially of this caliber. But what they ended up doing was they ended up using an overdrive grenade to go from the backside to somewhere in the middle early. Unfortunately, that meant iDrop went down. But because Marius is near the front, that means he could absolutely wreck everyone else for Surge, who's coming late after them. And that got him above from like 100 below to like 300 above. And then just the solo clutch dominated from after that.
We've been bigging up all the talent in the lobby, and it's fair to say Marius has been one of the biggest talents in this region over the past year and a half, and showcasing it here in 2026's FNCS circuit. I'm super excited to see what those two can do in the major finals, given some more time to prepare, and I'm sure all of you will be too. We have still 2 more games left, and so we're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap up and secure all our qualification spots. If you just missed that last game, you missed one of the better solo clutches you are going to see from anybody in Fortnite this season from Marius. An impressive game, but we still have more action to come, and we still have plenty of hungry duos in this lobby looking to secure a slot. I don't know whether to describe this next team as hungry or not, because Shark and Teeny, I mean, they're just playing with a lot of freedom, we'll say, Takar.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he got full after eating up Pink and Sato at the start with those elims, but hey, what they did do is make it look like a reload match when they were on height, okay? From the early game to the mid game to the late game, they were non-stop keying, non-stop picking up eliminations. I mean, this team was making it look easy.
Yeah, I think one of my, I don't want to toot my own horn, but one of the predictions I said was if they do good, they're going to go crazy. If they do bad, they're going to go crazy. I mean, it's a pretty easy prediction to make, let's be honest. But I think one of those is coming true, because these guys dropped 15 eliminations, and we're literally just fragging out. You could see, like, shockwaving onto height. I keep calling them shockwaves. They're overdrive grenades. I've been doing this the whole season so far. Overdrive grenades up onto height. Someone's nearby. They just jump on some whatever it is. You saw the whole end game for the most part. Teeny was just on height, and at the same time, Shark was down like 4 layers, just pickaxing on walls, full piecing everyone. These guys are just playing for fun. Like, it's a 5-game format. They don't want to end at game number 3. They got 2 more games of Fortnite to play.
I think Teeny got a bit jealous of Shark at the end there, started dropping down himself to start fragging out as well, and picked up more than Shark had. I mean, you can see the double digits, one after another. And, you know, unfortunately, after that, Teeny did get knocked. Shark happens to the best of us, forgot he had a chug, went into the zone, you know, is what it is.
So I'm gonna quickly just write that down. Resub 2026. If they do good, they're gonna go crazy. I mean, wow, this is the analysis we get on the Resub YouTube channel. I mean, look, one thing you have to say is we got to give credit to Teeny, because a lot of the time Shark gets all the plaudits and Teeny doesn't quite get it. Another team we have to talk about, because I think we've all been expecting maybe a bit more out of them in this lobby so far, is Vico and Malabuka. Again, not a catastrophic game by any means. They're still in the running to be there for consistency, but I think we want to see a bit more from these guys in this lobby, Takara.
We do. I mean, they started off incredibly strong. They got a top 5 finish, and after that, it's been a little iffy. 15th, 12th. This is what we were talking about earlier on. Due to their playstyle, they need to look for refreshes. They're using a lot of mats. They're consistently rotating early, and it's a bit risky if you have to do that. Now, both players are legends in not only EU competitive, just Fortnite competitive overall. So I would like to see a little less mistakes come from these players. Both of them are incredibly good individually. They can clutch up, but I want to see that synergy continue on until they start getting top 10s instead of going down in the middle end of the match.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like Reese, when it comes to these two, right? You obviously know a lot about them. I know you have a great relationships with both of their players. At this point in the competition, are you starting to worry about their mental and how that's going to affect their ability to stay consistent?
Absolutely not. They are, removing all of the teams who've already qualified through Victory Royales, they're third. Top 10 qualifies. We've got 2 games left. I'm not really concerned about them at all. And you look at like the rest of the lobby as well. Like the teams who are of the highest caliber in here are already basically being the most consistent already. And there is a bit of a drop off to some of the quality of the teams underneath. So, do I think the next 2 games they're just going to completely fall off and make a huge mistake? No. It's because the games they're still getting a bunch of elims. Out of everyone that's left in this lobby, outside of Shark and Teeny, obviously, they have the most eliminations so far. So, still not worried about them. Just some, not fantastic games.
Okay, not time to panic yet for Vico Malabuka. We've watched a couple games now, boys, right? And so the question is, if you're one of those teams lower down in the leaderboards and maybe consistency is starting to look out of reach for you, how are you winning a game in this lobby? What are the trends here? What are the key tactics we're going to have to see people pull out in order to be successful and win one of these last 2 games, Takara?
So one of the common strategies we've seen is combining that Flowberry Mist with the Overdrive Grenade. Now, we've seen it happen probably at least once every single match today. It launches you incredibly high up in the end game, and it's good for height retakes. The issue is, from what I've seen, that the duos that end up doing these height retakes don't hold height until the end of the match. Maybe they run out of materials, they get a little too aggressive with the fight, they get chopped down after, but they're gonna have to make some sort of play like that. Stay in Storm, go for the height retake, but hold it throughout the rest of the match.
Yeah, I think in order to do that, they need to have a better earlier game, because a lot of the problems with these teams aren't doing bad is they're not even making it to the end game to start with. So the main theme we've seen throughout the most successful teams is they're getting a refresh, they're getting a fight into something around that 6th or 7th zone. So if you're down on the leaderboards, you're probably not just going to make the best rotates of all time coming into this 4th game all of a sudden, because it's a tough lobby. So what you need to do is get on the walls, get in someone's boxes, get yourself some mats, and then get on height.
Well, when you describe what you're describing, Reese, could you see that coming from Cammy and Hari? Again, 2 names who many people would have expected to see qualify through, maybe potentially already at this point. Again, they're not out of it, right? They're still in the running. They're still looking good when it comes to consistency. Can they do what you just said there?
If I was going to offer up advice to Cammy and Hari, it would do not get on the walls, do not get on height, and do not get involved in the box. Because these guys are currently 8th, which, if you remove the top 3 teams, means they're 5th. So they're midway through the qualification already. Like, they're fine. They're also, let's be real, they're not the teams who's getting in box. They're not the team who's the Shark and Teeny net. They're the, I don't want to say pacifists. That's a little rude. I don't want to be that guy. But they're the classic Polish playstyle. We know what they are at this point. So, no, they've just got to keep playing what they are. And, maybe unless this next game totally goes wrong.
Well, hopefully they listen to your advice, Reese Hub. Taco, Mini, take it away. Let's see what these guys cook up in game number 4.
Thank you so much, Levin. Cami and Hari, 15 elimination height win upcoming. We got game number 4 coming for you guys right now. Maybe we will see that, who knows? But the trends are looking really, really good for those guys in particular, but also for some of our teams that have already qualified through. Really, really exciting endgames so far today, Taka. We've had some crazy storylines, solo clutches. It seems to have had it all, and we still got 2 more to go.
Yeah, the proof's in the pudding, that's for sure. Even if you are a solo, it's not to say that you still couldn't manage to find a huge come-up moment. I think Marias is probably the best example that we're going to be able to actually witness here today, Minnie. But Game 4, just on the horizon, and I'm definitely excited to see who our last couple of Victory Royale lobby winners are going to be and how that's actually going to impact the consistency metrics, because you never know. Somebody that might be hovering in that current 6th to 10th place on the leaderboard, they might find a Victory Royale, and then that jumps everybody else up along the way. So teams definitely trying to bank all their last shots on these last couple of moments.
That's going to be interesting. I'm looking at the leaderboard as well. We got Vico Malibuca in the mix, Cringe and Twy as well. Really excited to see those guys potentially popping off right now. A team that I've got my eyes on. Of course, the UK lads themselves. Really excited to see what they can actually do, because of course we want to see players like Twy, up and comers that maybe haven't made enough of those grand finals or made enough of a statement in those grand finals previously to actually qualify through this season. This is the perfect opportunity for them. Maybe the nerves are going to be shaking a little bit for those teams, but for Vico Malibuca, not at all, you have to imagine.
You gotta be steady throughout these final lobbies, because this is really where things can just be thrown for a loop. You never know if a team is going to try and maybe just do that all-out aggressive style, because we know teams like Sharkantini, sure, they love to be aggressive, sure, we know what they're capable of for their fighting potential, but some of these other duos that aren't inside that consistency metric, again, their best odds are going to be trying to fare for the Victory Royale. And if that's the case, Minnie, I mean, at that point, you can never really bank on anything, because height already looks like doom and despair at times because of that Flowberry Fizz, Overdrive Grenade, retake method, and it definitely seems to be a point of contention. But with some of the teams that have been removed from the lobby, iDraw Medias now being one of those duos, I'm almost anticipating that height's going to be even more difficult to hold, because Sharkantini, they seem like they had a really firm grasp on it in that last lobby.
Yeah, it's going to get even more messy. And I really like what Reese broke down there just as we were going into this 4th game, was that you need to have a good mid-game. That earlier stage of the game is so important for teams that want to try and play height effectively. But unfortunately, at this point, as we get towards these last stage of the competition, there'll be teams that haven't had a good mid-game, that haven't really set themselves up for success, that are still trying to go up for height as well, that are still using that shockwave grenade or that overdrive grenade combined with the fizz to actually try and take height and just try and gung-ho and just try and all full send height. So we'll see how that goes in the future. We're going to go back to the desk right now, though, just for a short.
Not quite the face you're expecting to see, but don't panic, don't you worry. We will be back into the game as soon as we can be. We're going to go to a break, and when we are back, we will be hitting you with game number 5, ready to see who can qualify for the Major 1 finals out of Heat 1.
Welcome back here to FNCS Heat 1, and we appreciate your patience there. We worked through some issues. We are going to be jumping into game number 4 right here, Taco. It's been a little while, but we are hyped up for it, ramped up for it. Conversations going into it. You know, Cami and Shari inside of that top 5 qualification right now. Of course, we have consistency and Victory Royales that matter here. It's going to be exciting, though. Who's going to do it?
A little bit of a rejuvenation period even for some of these teams, but game 4, I mean, we're ready to hop right in, and sure enough, Minnie gonna have to ban the conversation elsewhere, because Pink, Sato under a lot of duress. It's Turtle and Cheeps that they've chosen to get a little bit aggressive on early here in lobby 4.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation for Cheeps and Turtle, for them to be in this sort of position as we sort of get a replay from the other side of the map. It's Elise and it's Bari who nicely clean up over there on the east side of the map. That was nicely done from them, but yeah, that's important, what you need for these certain off-spawn situations.
Yeah, definitely not what Chucks and Bellary wanted to see on their screens. The full elimination by Artiste and Linux, or Hero, excuse me, it's going to make it all the more problematic. They're really going to have to bank on that 5th game to be their opportunity to lock in for this Major 1 finals. But Things aren't slowing down anytime soon. Battlewood Boulevard just continuing to heat up here. Neutral and Mexo doing what they can. They've got a little bit of an overhead leverage here, but Cheesy and Gold have been non-stop kind of holding this other duo at bay. These two teams just always caught in the mix with each other.
It's a difficult one. I mean, this is such a big POI. It's just so easy for you to sort of find little buildings and areas to hide, so these fights can drag on a little bit, which of course opens the door for third parties coming in. Maybe from the south, you can see a couple of those pink arrows right there representing another team. So these are the sort of fights that you do need to make sure that when they do start to boil over, it goes quickly. And hopping onto the other side of the map, it's Shark and Teeny against Turtle and Cheeps. Going to be a big fight here. It looks as though Shark and Teeny have not had any cobwebs now. They've continuing to plow on like they've been doing all day. Just unbelievable aggression from them, and it looks like actually, as we say that, they are just going to disengage here. They are our front runners in terms of consistency. They've been so aggressive, getting elimination after elimination in every single game that they've been in. They've had 28 eliminations so far. To put it into context, the team that had the second most eliminations was iDrop and Marius, and they've already qualified through. So it's an unbelievable gap that they are forging now between them and the rest of the lobby.
Teeny was still lingering, though. A little bit of unfinished business, it might seem. Maybe they'd been looking for that Pink Sato aggression that they'd been able to kind of take over in that last lobby. But trouble brewing right now for Cheesy and Gold. Battlewood Boulevard, though, the third parties overhead, Nero and Josh, they see prime opportunity to strike for a little bit of surge damage, and they've got the elevation, but what they need is to connect with some shots. And there's also a team a little bit further north from their position, just hanging out on the hillside. This is a hard box fight to make happen just because of all these teams in the surrounding area. But Cheesy, he's going to find a nice tag there. It's going to cause a little bit of a scramble here now. But Cheesy, he's still looking to try and drop in Shark from the next side. And these teams are just taking what they can out of these fights.
Cheesy manages to close out right there. That's nicely done from him. And again, though, like I was saying, they've got to be careful of these third parties.
Yeah, they're definitely looking for it.
Definitely looking for it there, and it was good work from them to close out that fight. This is it, though. Cammy and Shari rotating on through. This is a big moment for them because, of course, you know, they're not in danger necessarily, but they do need to continue the progression that they've been having. I mean, they want to try and retain their spot in that top 5. And, of course, they are just on the cusp of that. Of course, 8th on the leaderboard right now. Remember, our first 3 are going to be the teams that have already qualified through. Over 1,000 points. If you're slightly confused when looking at those standings. And they're just on the cusp, so big game for them. Both of these last games matter, and likewise for Casper and Prism, who have had a somewhat okay day, but nothing to shout about. And Shark and Teeny are going to continue on their elimination front with the first elimination of the game for them.
It doesn't help that Wonky Limb being one of the legendary POIs. They'll waste absolutely no time and swiftly taking out Ajax. Now wondering where Bambi might be at, given that his duo has already been eliminated. And Shark Teeny, we've already seen what they're capable of just in that last matchup alone. They are looking for full-on elimination sprees here.
Yep, that's what they do. That's how they're choosing to roll, and I don't think they're going to be winning a game unless maybe they go for a little Game 5 win. Why not? Put the cherry on the cake, as Yapko and Panzer looking to make a bit of a play right here. They've already got their elimination in the game, but they want more. As Calais on the other side of the wall, it's not going to be an easy fight. Looks like they're maybe just trying to get some of this loot. I think this is a sort of remnants of a previous fight that has gone on, and maybe they don't want to fight the other team here. You can see it from the other perspective. Neither team looks like they're too interested in fighting here. It looks like Yapko and Panzer just wanted a little bit of that loot, a slice of it, to claim for themselves there.
But if they can get the elimination points, I don't think they'd be against it either, especially not with Focus having his shields drop so incredibly low. His HP, a couple of splashes are definitely going to have to come into the mix here to help him out. But for 3 points per elimination, when you're looking at a duo like Panzer and Yapko that have just not had the success that they needed on the day, Mini, I mean, they're trailing pretty decently behind the current leaderboard standings. 18th place heading into this 4th match of the day. And with only one lobby left to go, they're going to have to make up those points somewhere if they can't find the consistency metrics that they needed early on through placements.
Make a decision, aren't they? And a team that don't really have to make a decision right now is Teeny and Shark, who should be home and dry, but they're choosing to continue their progression and their aggression onto the rest of the lobby. Not quite sure where Shark is, though. Yeah, kind of very split right here. I don't quite know what's going on. They're in a different postcode to each other, but interesting plays. Maybe just getting a sense of who's around, getting an idea of what the area is looking like. They seem to have gone on a bit of a marathon this game, just doing so much distance and covering so much distance. There's Pink and Sato. Maybe this is the idea for Shark and Teeny. Of course, Pink and Sato landing close to them.
I think the big thing here is this is just lobby conditioning right now from Shark and Teeny. It is so evident that they want full control of these mountain spans, and Pink, Sato, they were given an idea of the fact that Shark, Teeny, they want to defend what they feel belongs to them. So despite Pink and Sato landing in that split over by Frozen Shark, Pink, he likes to rotate onto the mountain work, and it gives a great overview, right? You get all that high, you get all elevation. It's much easier to try and secure some surge tags, but Shark, Teeny, part of the reason why I feel like they've really managed to stick around a lot of these lobbies is they want to ensure that things are all wrapped up as nicely as can be after they already missed out on letting Huddy and Fishy through. The least they can do is try to prevent Pink and Sato from interrupting from what they feel they should be able to control.
Yeah, it's a great point. And of course, they're going to be contested now in the major finals, right? If you can only imagine. So that fight is going to give Pink and Sato that opportunity, that green light to try and get some surge tags on that off-spawn battle. So you're absolutely right. I think this is what they're trying to do as well. This is just trying to negate any potential problems that they have over in the finals. Oh, they've lost the pizza though, which is going to be a bit of a problem for them as that goes tumbling down the mountain. So does Teeny, getting on the wall of Sato. Pink having to come over and provide some cover. Shark dropping on in as well, and this is going to be an interesting fight because we've got sort of a 1v1 ×2 situation right now as Teeny is on Sato, Pink is on Shark. Who's going to make that first shot? Who's going to get that first bit of damage to open up the fire? You can see Shark looking over towards Sato. This is almost like zone wars right now. One person shooting one the other. Just like a creative fight. Shark and Pink's side of things, not too much is happening. Sato's quite happy just to sit up on height. And it's Pink that's taking a lot of the fire right now. Sato getting return fire as well. Does have the pizza to heal, but oh no, look at this. Look who's lurking. It's Prism and Casper. This fight's got to end quite quickly, and Teeny and Shark looking to jump on Sato right now. They're trying to get inside the box. Sato retreating, and Pink is getting on over as well. Could that be it for Pink and Sato right here? Could they get together in a nice position? It's nicely blocked from Pink. Shark still looking for an angle, finds one, and Pink is down on the HP.
Part of the problem there, though, is that Teeny also took a good chunk of his health in the process here, so now he's got to rely on Shark to alleviate some of that pressure. But with another duo potentially coming into the fold here, Sato, Pink, they're gonna take this opportunity to try and fully disengage, but Teeny still looking to give chase, utilizing the gloves unit just to try and close that gap. But this might be more than what he bargained for, but instead Pink can't make it through the porta potty, gets caught right as he is about to go through the doorway, and that is so unfortunate. Sato did manage to get out of there, Mini, but now they have to play for the revive and reboot, and you have to anticipate Shark, Teeny, they're already secure because of their placement points alone. They can afford to spend all the time that they need to inside a storm and just wait this one out.
So difficult here for Pink and Sato, a team that we highlighted at the beginning of the day. It's looking like they're going to need to rely on a victory royale right now to qualify through in that last game. If Sato can't make anything of this, Cheesy down. This is a team that we saw doing very well at Battlewood previously. And it's Heath and Blisey that are actually able to find that elimination. Really nicely done from them all the way back in the storm. I think it's one of those where you probably didn't expect there to be a team there, but now Gold Boy has it all to do.
Might still be able to actually utilize this reboot, but one more time, these teams, when they're able to find those eliminations, it all depends on the time frame. And when your time to elimination is a little bit more stretched out than when you wanted it to be, you just become that much more susceptible. Even if you're the duo that retains a somewhat of a power position from finding those 3 points off the elimination, you're still hanging around in an area, you're still delaying your rotates and the positioning. We've seen just how important it's been for so many of these teams. Whenever they're late heading into the edge zone or anything like that, they immediately get caught out by teams that are much more established. And one of those teams I think has been doing a great job at kind of elevating themselves in general. It's been Cringe and Twy here today.
Yeah, they've been really good today, and you know, it's a situation that they could only sort of dream of being in, I suppose, at the beginning of the day. You know, they're not necessarily the highest amount of experienced team, if you want to put it like that, in the lobby. Twy has made a few grand finals, and Cringe has made one, so you know, it's not like they're complete newcomers to it, but they're gonna have a few nerves, I'm sure, going into these last couple of games. Handling it well, though. As Lunex and WX, we saw these guys in a solid position in endgame, up on high, also find themselves just inside of that qualification range, so they're another team that are looking to hang on for as long as they possibly can. And they're doing so very well right now. They had that one big pop-off game, they've had some pretty solid placements as well. They've had a 3rd and a 12th, so what they've been able to do is just keep chipping away despite a little bit of a wobble at the beginning of the day. They've kept finding themselves in those endgame situations.
Bad news there, though, for some of these teams, just on that slightly congested portion of the edge of zone right now. Focus and Kale, they have a little bit of leverage here, but not if they don't find the pieces they need to. Focus gonna have the shields entirely dropped, and immediately just the collapse of this duo. That was a great moment there from Tarps and Noya. They definitely needed that refresh. They definitely needed the surge damage, and now it gives them the opportunity to just look for bettering their positioning. But Teeny still lurking around. He's definitely taken notice of some of these teams that are a little bit late to the party here and just looking to apply damage where he can. But as a solo, that's where things become a little bit more difficult. Lost Shark along the way.
Yeah, it was probably always going to happen, right? The way that they were conducting themselves at the beginning of the game, they were just trying to W key no matter what in the storm. It was all a bit chaotic, so I suppose they didn't really care too much that they're in this situation, as long as Pink's team won in a good situation in the end game. But Teeny's got it all to do. We've seen a solo clutch already today. Can we get another, potentially with a slightly different result? Maybe not a win, but we'll see. As Robin finally makes his way inside of the zone as well. Nicely done from him. This is a nice little rotation, actually, sort of on the less congested side, as a lot of people have already rotated. On his own, though, and that's always going to be difficult.
Yeah, would have been a lot better if he still had his duo Hyper with him. I think it's also important to kind of highlight that before these two joined together, in previous formats similar to this, they've managed to find individual wins. So now, as a duo, Game 4, obviously, that's probably going to have to depend on lobby number 5 if they're able to find that kind of success together. But Robin's still not counting himself out by any means, has a decent amount of points heading into this point in first place. And so now it's all going to come down to just how much more placement can you secure, because the lobby is rapidly dwindling, Minnie, and that's kind of to be expected as we approach the secondary half of today's competition.
Really important, and now this is where sort of Storm Surge really becomes a factor. That's absolutely vital for the teams. For Yapko and Panzer, not particularly something they have to worry too much about, with 1,116 above, so they're looking pretty strong in that department. They've got a nice zone pull as well. Difficult for the rest of the lobby. You can see on that east side of the zone. The zone pulls west, and they've got to get over this water, which is always just a little bit of a challenge, particularly when the players that are already in the zone are situated there and are able to almost fort up and base up to then look back. Is that Vico on his own right there as well, I think? I don't see Malibuka anywhere, so almost adding to their sorrows, because they're a team that are inside of that top 5 for qualification via consistency. Yeah, Vico on his own, so having to do it all, but inside of the placement point, so every single placement now does matter for them. It's going to keep adding up for their pushes here into the top 5.
It's obvious, though, Vigo was hoping to avoid a lot of that lobby congestion by kind of wrapping around more towards like a dead side position. But as a solo, it's so difficult to actually try and lock down these rotational patterns without somebody taking notice, but yet Vico has managed to find a way, a little bit elevated too, even on the side of this hill, but with Cheeps directly overhead, he's gonna really have to be very aware of not getting focused by duos around him. Cammy, Hadi doing a great job right now at punishing Truly and Zynox for just being a little bit too slow to get forward on their position, and this is exactly what Cammy and Hadi needed, just every single point that they can try and secure to confirm whether or not they're gonna be able to retain their position inside the consistency metrics for the leaderboard.
Solo versus solo violence right here. Cheeps on his own, shooting down towards Vico down there. Is that in full zone? No, it's going to go a little bit more towards the east for Cheeps. Again, 78 points, just lurking around that top 5 qualification mark, so need to absolutely make the most of this game, even just to set themselves up for as good of a game 5 as they can possibly have. If they're not going to be able to make their way into the top 5 now, you've got to at least give it a possibility, give yourself a chance going into the final game. Not able to connect with any shots right there. Vico goes down, so the solo dream is over for him, but a valiant effort to make it into the top 22.
Backside of zone is just so volatile as a solo because there's always going to be duos kind of lingering, hoping that they can actually pull together a Sypha materials elimination. That was exactly what Ken and Crypulse needed, but now overhead, Waze and Effexy, they've actually managed to take current control of Hype, but with this kind of material count mini, it's only a matter of time before they'll be forced to drop, whether it's to go for body loot or just to try and find more eliminations. It just doesn't seem like this is going to be a height hold that they're going to be able to control, but the fact that the zone has pulled over water is definitely paying into their favor because all these teams underneath them are burning through their builds just as quickly.
Such a horrible zone for all of these players that are down below as Cringe and Twy make their way towards the front side of zone. Really nice rotate from them, avoiding so much damage. And Waze and Effexy, all their job right now is to make themselves look as strong as possible. Even if their material count isn't looking so strong, they need to make it look as such. There's going to be so many people that are going to be looking up at that height, particularly at this stage of competition. They want to make it their own. Yapko and Panzer, another team inside of that sort of mid-ground, looking really, really strong. Robin's still alive and well as a solo, looking strong as well. They need it all to do. Two teams on very, very similar points that are looking to break into that top 5. This could be the game to do it.
Robin just has to make sure that he doesn't have his floor disappear from underneath him and fall straight into the clutches of a duo that is hurting, but he's done a great job at just playing towards the backside. Will manage to find another elimination, and a full box of pizza on top of the Chug Jug is going to buy him so much more time. He can choose to just try and play out these heals and hope that it's able to secure in the placement points while the zone continues moving forward. So some ground to make up for, but Twek, Hydro doing what they can from ultimate low, trying to see if there's anybody that they can drop into their box. Cringe and Twy have also played it so slow and steady. They only have a handful of builds left over, but that doesn't matter if they're able to find the connecting shots for eliminations, and that's just going to keep them paving forward. Robin does go down, though, will eventually be taken out by the storm. Just too much, and it's just not enough time left to work with here. But Effexy and Waze, again, just great scenes for them currently. But things could change at a moment's notice like they just did for Yapko and Panzer.
Yeah, Effexy and Waze have had to drop down as well. Vegeta now claims that high ground position. Not seeing his teammate too close by, but Chari and Cammy, they're in a really nice position. They don't have too many builds, but they're able to play a little bit of this storm, play patient, go for the pre-edit. There's Effexy goes down. That's going to be one. Can they find the finish for it? The body goes down to the storm. Twek's actually able to pick up that refresh as well, so it's not going to go to Hari and Cammy, but that's a huge elimination for them and a huge way to keep their game going. They've just got no builds here, Taco. They haven't got anything to work with. They need to try and make it count as Hari finds one. There goes another, and Cammy is able to find 2 as well. That's 4 eliminations for the duo, and it keeps them going.
This is why you can never count out the Polish powerhouses. Cammy and Hadi, they're managing to make it happen here, even with Vegeta as a solo overhead. Hadi and Cammy are locked in their own dimension here inside the underlayers. Hadi, Cammy now looking to move straight towards front side of zone. Handful of materials left, but that might be all they need. They can keep stringing together these shots, but Cringe, Twy also not looking to go down without a fight here. Siphon just in the nick of time here is Cringe. Now waiting to see if he can get another onto Pixovsky, and Saren duo fully eliminated now. Twy, Cringe, all they need to do is make it into the zone itself, but Nefizzy, he's gonna slow them down along with Vegeta over on height. Cammy, Hadi now seemingly the most healthy team in this lobby here. Game 4, this could be the one to do it.
This is where Cammy knows best, all the way down on low ground, top 3 situation there. The only duo in the game, Nefreezy up on high. Vegeta's still there as well. He's had to give it up, so now he's going to drop down into the doom of Cammy and Hari, who does get eliminated right there. So it's all down to Cammy and Hari down on low ground. The duo against Nefreezy, the team that the analysts didn't think would win, but Hari goes down in the storm. It's going to be Cammy versus Nefreezy as a 1v1, but that's only going one way. And it's Cammy and Hari are going to make their way into the Major 1 finals in style.
As if Cammy would ever miss a shot like that in the final moments. I'm sorry, it was a great attempt there from the Fizzy Mini, but HP bars do not lie. Fantastic victory royale in game 4 here for Hardy and Cammy. But what's the desk got to say about it?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And you know what? I'm glad Miniminer remembered, because for a second I almost didn't remember. It was quite some time ago, but the last segment we did, boys, we were talking about Cammy and Hari. We talked about what would they need to do to guarantee that they are in the grand finals next weekend. Reese, you had some advice for them, and it does feel like they played to your advice, right? They win the game, but maybe not in the more aggressive style that some of the other teams are attempting to do right now.
Yeah, I mean, I said play the same play style. Clearly they listened. That's most important. They had time to sit and do a little bit extra VOD review and see what the teams around them were doing, see what the strategies were from everywhere, and they managed to make it succeed. Make the best of the scenario that you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, the only dud they had was the first match of the day where they got 24th, and since then, and when you said, just play it safe, don't go super aggressive, do your consistency route, it's exactly what they did. 9th, 7th, and now the win.
Absolutely. This is something you kind of expect out of this team every single game. In order for them to actually pop off, be at the top of the leader for some of the biggest teams, this is the kind of match we need every single game. They didn't get a single elim up until the 11th zone in this match. So super, super pacifist, playing every single build out, which is usually what they do, and then jumping in. You see a lot of the other teams, like we kind of mentioned, Malibu, Kafiko, who go for that elim early, in the 6th, 7th zone. They're so heavily dependent on it. Whereas Cammy and Hari, they just play out the whole game and frag out from then on.
Yeah, man. Thinking of Cammy specifically, I mean, he's a player who, when new season started, would be one of the first to kind of hop on the meta for that season. And now with the changes of less players playing in Storm, kind of rotating more quickly, it has actually played out quite well for them in this set lobby. So I'm excited to see how they play in the finals.
Look, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, boys, but based off of what you've seen from them today, what do you make of their chances for next weekend? I just want to know quickly, because a lot of people, it doesn't feel like the hype and the machine is around them, right? We don't see people bigging them up as much as we have in the past. Do you think they can surprise people?
Look, you asked for my underdog pick at the start of the day. I said Cringe Volko, but it was between Cringe Volko and Hari Cammy. There were the two in my mind that I couldn't quite pick one from. And I mean, I did pick Cringe Volko, but I do think now, seeing Cammy qualify, it's gonna be a little high up on the middle end of the leaderboard. Maybe like a 10th could be possible, but I don't know if I'd see them in the top 5, to be honest.
All right, well, look, plenty more to break down from this game. We will get to it, but we have a quick break, so stick around and we'll see you soon. It's crunch time. We have played 4 games. We have 1 more remaining, and it is your last opportunity in this next game for all of the players left in Heat 1 now to try and secure a spot in that major finals. 1 spot will go to the winner of this next game, but for everybody else, it's about doing enough for consistency. One team who it feels like has been doing enough up to this point is Cringe and Twy, and I know this is a team you're very excited about, Reese.
It is. I would love to. I could give you them strats. I could give you the history of the team. But all that matters is that Cringe is actually Scottish, so it doesn't matter.
That's the real analysis.
That's the breakdown. On a real note, they have been playing incredibly well. I mean, top 10 in the first game, and after that, 4th, 6th, 4th. I mean, in terms of heats, that is beyond expectations to be a qualifying duo through consistency. So, I mean, I'd like to see them end on a bang and, win the last match. But either way, I mean, you can almost guarantee that they're going to make it through consistency.
Definitely. And, for Cringe to Try, in a reality, when you look at the playstyle, when you look at the match history, I don't really see these guys ever dropping a double-digit elim game. You don't see them going absolutely insane. They're a team who has strats on strats on strats, whether they play Storm. Right now they're dropping mid-map, which is extremely good for this current meta where, most people are just trying to get to the center of zone, and they already dropped there.
Well, look, of course, things are getting tight and we're looking for the top 10 teams to qualify. And so after the next game, we're going to be looking for top 15. So let's take a look at who's in and around that range. If we look at this next page, oh, production, fantastic. Oof. We can see there, one of the teams who absolutely a lot of people would have been predicting to be in a safe spot by now will be Yapko and Panzer. You can see them there in 16th. Above them, Wheat and the Frizzy. After that impressive second place, rising, soaring up the standings, Takar.
Yeah, I mean, this gets stressful for a lot of these players, but to be fair, it's not super high of a cutoff. Getting second place would secure you 56 points with 0 eliminations. So everybody, even on this further end of the leaderboard, all they need basically is to get to the end game and have a decent match. Now, that is a lot easier said than done.
It is, definitely. You know, a lot of people will say top 15 is easy. A lot top 20 is easy, whatever it is. And then you get into the lobby. And then you actually try. I saw a tweet earlier which said, this heat looks so unbelievably easy. But you have Yapko and Panzer in 16th, as we highlighted there. A team who has won a divisional cup last season, who's been top 10, 2 divisional cups this season, not performing. In 19th, you have Cringe and Volko, who of course was Toka's pick to do well, the sleeper team to do well, who is not also doing that well. But a big important note is also what we mentioned there. The little arrows on the left to show where they were before. 15th places they've moved up, whereas Wheat and Frizzy also in 15th moved up 22 places from that. So as we mentioned, a top 2, a win straight into a qualifier, but it just needs a big game from obviously the people further down in the leaderboard than this. These guys just need something consistent.
Well, yeah, I wonder if we can start to look further down, just because, again, it is going to be so tough for any of those teams in that range, right? Again, like you guys rightfully highlight, it's about the consistency, right? Just having a decent, solid game. If you're one of the teams that didn't even see your name on those first 2 pages, hey, you might have to forget all that second place stuff. It might just have to be the win or nothing. And those are the electric games, right? We see these non-stop hype takes. Those are the games that are always the most fun to watch, it feels like, Takar.
Look, I'm thinking of a specific duo, actually. Pink and Sato. They're in 36th place currently. Yeah. They have 44 points. Now, 36 doesn't sound so good, but looking at 44 points versus the cutoff around 95, I see something, you know, some potential in there. One good game from them. Issue is they've had Sharkantini playing quite aggressive, you could say, towards them. They do drop in their surrounding area, so they obviously don't want to go against that in finals. So it all comes down to this last match.
I'm not seeing it. They've got to win a game. I think looking at the numbers, like, yeah, it's 50 points, but that puts them up to 97. But the threshold's going to move up by what, 20 points? It's probably going to be 120 or something like that. So for basically any team who's in that threshold right now, it's going to have to be the big game win, or you're going to last chance qualifier next week, which no one wants to do if you're already here in the heat.
Well, look, enough waffling. Let's get to the action. Your destiny is in your hands if you're one of the players in this game. Taco Mini, for the last time today, take it away. Put us out of our misery.
A single win and you are in, guaranteeing your position on the battle bus for the Major 1 finals. Sure, last chance qualifiers right around the corner, Mini Miner, but we know just how much all of these teams want to try and avoid that kind of circumstance whenever possible. And it starts right here, right now, because this is their last opportunity before LCQ to try and get the job done.
Yeah, you want to get the job done early. It's like leaving your homework to the last minute. You don't want to do it. I was guilty of it. It never goes well. So you want to get the job done as soon as you can, and you don't want to be leaving it until that last chance qualifier, because there's so many big teams in that lobby that you just don't want to be going up against. It's going to be really difficult. But for some of the teams that are lower on down, Pink and Sato, potentially one big game is all that separates them from this Major 1 finals. And then for teams that are even lower down than that, they need the victory royale. So it's going to come down to it.
But we are ready to start things off. Last game of the day, match number 5 here in Heats 1 for EU. You can see the legendary POIs are going to fall towards Sus Studios and Latte Landing, but right now it's all eyes on Squibbly Shores. Ken and Cryfalls, they've been getting relatively fraggy super early on, a lot of times having to deal with that on-spawn contention, and it'll be one more time that they're running that scene back. Spicy Fish have been utilized, so they're looking for a quick collapse if they can find it, but at the same time, not getting pressured just yet by Chunk and Velry. This has been a pretty split 50-50 between these two teams for the most part.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they can do White.
Who's the victim?
Looking to try and get some damage. Yeah, this is... Can he get it? Yeah, there we go. Nicely done.
Sometimes the bus paths can be brutal for some of our other contenders, but that's just the nature of the lobby at times. Dexy, Frosty. I do feel like this is another one of those duos, Mini, where a lot of teams would have, or not even teams, but a lot of the public eye would have kind of been leaning towards this as a duo that falls through consistency at the very least.
Yeah, it's one of those, you know, you just expect things from teams and then the games come through and it's like, well, things are actually going a little bit differently than what you expected. So, you know, when it does come down to these last few moments, you just expect teams that maybe you were expecting more from to have these big pop-off moments. For Ken and the Triforce here, that's nicely finished up right there for them. That's one elimination apiece. Velry back to the lobby, unfortunately, for them, and not going to be a major finals for them, unfortunately. Not being the dream situation for them. This is the fight we saw earlier on in the last game. Easy and gold. Nicely done with that first elimination, but there's, of course, so much action in this area. You have to be so careful. And that was nicely cleaned up right there. But, of course, there's that another third party, there's that other team lurking nearby.
Yeah, Nero and Josh Bot made things a little bit dicey there for a moment for Cheesy, but I think the real indirect helping hand for Cheesy and Goldboy was Twy finding those initial early shots onto Omexo that just put such a huge stoppage into their early off-spawn fighting strategy. And now, again, what Teeny and Shark are getting up to, infiltrating the likes of Frozen Shard. There's only one duo that they're hunting for right now, Mini, and I think we all know that it's Pink and Sato, but so far the scene is clear. They won't have to deal with Shark and Teeny just yet, but that is still going to be something that kind of hangs over their heads, where Shark Teeny, they seem very adamant on trying to chase that duo down.
They do, I mean, even potentially looking towards Vico Malabuka. I mean,
right?
If they can, you know, if they can get them out of the lobby for the major finals, their spot is not confirmed at all. And if they can get Frigid Fortress to themselves, I wonder if they could think about that as a potential option for the major finals. Maybe if Wonky Land might be a bit too risky for them now, but this is what they're doing right now. Very, very sneaky for Shark and Teeny. It's something that they've done so often here today. Just rotate over to this east side.
Almost makes you nostalgic of Teeny back when he used to be with Misha, and they like to play, you know, drop spot roulette, essentially. And for the most part, Vico and Malabuka, they don't seem to have any idea, and if Vico isn't careful, he might just find himself on the receiving end of a couple of shotgun tags that'll be too much to handle. But Shark, Teeny, they are just so patient, really biding their time. Vico, fortunately for right now, won't find himself eliminated for it. Just gonna keep blindly overdrive grenading away, sticking close to Malabuka's side. But Shark, Teeny, I think they still want to give this the lurk here.
Yeah, they used to do this a lot as well with Shark and Misha. Teeny and Misha, to say, they used to lurk around these sort of like surge bases that people used to do, and they used to chop them down. It's very, very reminiscent of that. But Yapko and Panzer, a team that you would expect to see in the major finals right now. They're not home and dry at all yet. It's at 95 points, so they're still outside of that threshold. They need a good game here, not just a decent game. It's got to be a solid one to qualify on through. Unfortunately for Chris and Cactus, they aren't in such a good situation and probably going to be angling more towards a victory. And that really changes things for so many teams. When you have been a team that's not just needing a win, but also haven't been playing that great on the day, it can just make a bit of a mess in the end game. And there's so many teams that are thinking the same, and you need to be on your A game to react to it. Always makes for an exciting end, so stick around for it. It'll be great. As Shark and Teeny get a very aggressive play here onto Vico Malabuka. They've been lurking and following them at about 2 miles an hour the whole way through. They finally caught up to them. That is where things start to get a bit messy.
Yeah, but for Vico and Malabuka, they might look to just fully disengage here. Shark and Teeny are still going to be forced to just kind of lurk around. Vico has done a decent job at just maintaining a little bit of spacing here, but Shark, decent tag. That's not shield that he was willing to sacrifice, and it is going to play a little bit of a part towards that net surge overall. I mean, think about how much time that they've expended just following Vico and Mally around the map in the first place, so kind of need to come up with something here, Mini.
This is a difficult situation for them, and I think Vico Malabuka, I'm sure they know what the situation is here, because of course this is a team that are going to be right next door to them if both do make the major finals. And Shark and Teeny, they want to make sure that there's as little high quality top tier talent around them as possible. I think we can confidently say that Shark and Teeny's spot in the major finals is confirmed, and this is the good format for Malabuka. Remember that Chapter 5 Season 1 win with Moustache? That was a really great one. He played really well, one of the most frightening teams, sort of a bit of a comeback for Moustache and Malabuka in that season. They were so frightening in sort of Chapter 3, and then it changed up a little bit. Things changed in Chapter 4 when Moustache ended up playing with Tayson, winning Major 1. Of course, we all remember what happened to Malabuka and Thomas in that time. I think it was 1 point in the end. So it's good to see those guys getting back. So maybe this is going to be a bit of a resurgence of that level of dominance, maybe, from Malabuka and Vico. They have the talent, they just haven't had the results from it so far. Maybe it'll take time to develop. And Teeny and Shark are almost embodying that level of gameplay right now, and that level of scariness throughout the rest of the lobby. People used to be scared of Moustache and Malabuka. Probably the most we've had it in EU. And I say that Teeny and Shark are almost embodying that themselves.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's so reserved from both of these duos, because for Shark Teeny, if they slip up here, they'll just be providing Malabuka and Vico with pretty much the guarantee into the Major 1 finals. I'd have a hard time believing that Vico Malabuka wouldn't be able to translate a solid eliminations onto Shark and Teeny into a nice end game placement finish. But the longer that fight kind of draws out, or I should say doesn't happen, the more time that both of those duos are going to have to commit to not being able to really calculate any surge that they might need later on. We've seen so many duos kind of being hassled by dealing with the surge threshold and not having enough. This Yapko, Panzer, they are looking to take matters into their own hands here. Dealing with Xanthifying Words, just another one of those duos. 44 points, that's nowhere near good enough for making sure that you can lock in the consistency side of the leaderboard. Just got to get the win in. But Yapko, Panzer, they are in that position where, you know, realistically, top 5 placement would be the most ideal circumstance for them, but Sun continues to pull controls over some of these vending machines along the way. That's going to be, I think, something that kind of comes back to haunt them if they're not able to find those eliminations that they were hoping for.
Difficult for them. I think we haven't had too many south zones today either. I feel like it's been majority sort of northwest of the map. I don't remember there being any sort of sand in any zones, and we're sort of heading back towards the west side of the map now. The Hyper and Robin, we saw a really nice solo clutch from Robin earlier on, keeping them in contention, keeping them around that top 5 of the leaderboard. They're not quite there yet, but not too far away either. You can sort of see where this zone's pulling a little bit more south. So what we've seen so far in the day. Look at all the players in the Storm as well. I mean, there's players in Safe Landing. They've got that big launch pad there. There's just so many playing the Storm, and it's something we spoke about earlier. It's just skipping that mid game is super valuable for them. Just to that degree is crazy.
But you are still taking the risk of, you know, having to then deal with storm sickness if you find yourself in a situation during the moving zones, for example, where you want to go for a heal, but then you can't because you expended so much time inside the storm early on. See how that fares. But Vico, Malabuka, worst scenes possible. Vico by himself at 136 points. They are out of here. Teeny and Shark have just ran it down on Vico and Malabuka. And this might be the moment that haunts Vico and Mally for the remainder of this day. I mean, I'm speechless, Minnie, because that's not a duo that you would ever expect to be at risk of not making it through this first heats, and yet here they are, likely going to be just edge out of that top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, that's it. 136 points. They were in the top 9 going into this game, which was that was the threshold. They were the threshold. Of course, we had 4 victory rounds, top 5 qualified through. I'm just trying to do all the maths in my head to make sure it's actually correct. It doesn't seem real. Yeah, 4 plus 5 is 9. They were in 9th, so now every other player is going to be catching up to them. Every other team down below, they're going to be out. They're not going to be in the Major 1 finals yet, so they're going to have it all to do in the last chance qualifier. Really big story for them. That's probably the biggest surprise in the Major 1 last chance qualifier. Exciting nevertheless, though, as we get to watch some top-tier teams go at it, if they even make it to the final of the last chance. Don't want to jinx them here as WX and Lunex inside this fight. They've played pretty well so far today. They're another team that's sort of in a good contention for it. But, haven't necessarily had dream day. They've been pretty solid, and they're in that threshold, and there's another elimination for them. Pretty solidly in that threshold, actually. Top 7 going into this game with another few eliminations, going to bolster their chances at getting through. Been a pretty solid performance from them.
Every few points just makes it all the better. 3 per elimination. But now I'm looking at a team like Ziffy and Dirty. You called it earlier here today. Ziffy trying to secure his first ever grand moment. And they are right on the cusp, being able to make it in, especially when teams like Vico and Malibuca are seen with such early elimination departures here. If they're able to find a strong placement finish in this final lobby mini, that could be the difference maker, because they're already sitting at 13th heading into this final lobby. All they've really got to do is just find their own flow, not get distracted, but that's so much easier said than done, especially when you're thinking about the caliber of lobby that they're dealing with still.
Yeah, I don't want to clarify. I was actually wrong. I was doing the maths wrong. It's actually top 10 teams qualify. I was doing top 5. It's not, so it's okay. Vico and Malibuca are in it for now. Of course, top 15 at the end of the day.
It's still so close, man. Let's be realistic.
It's still going to be so close. It's going to be so close. I was always second guessing myself, and I was like, no, surely. But then, of course, it's top 15 at the end of the day. 10 consistency teams qualifying through. I think my brain's still in trio mode.
But not having any control, I think, is kind of where I want to like pick up more with that, because Vico Malibuca, even at 136 points, I mean, you are still kind of depending on some of the other teams trailing just behind you to all have not the greatest performances. And while I think technically it is pretty realistic to expect that they might just make it in towards that like 13th through 15th position, it's still going to be rough to sit and watch and kind of just, you know, that sinking feeling in your stomach almost, because you don't have control of your fate any longer. Not all because of Shark and Teeny just kind of playing a little bit of the eviler side of Fortnite here, but it's all for good reason. I mean, it is a very smart strategy from Shark and Teeny, and I don't want to take away from that either.
Definitely. Still going to be a bit dicey for Vico Malibuca. Not going to be easy at all, but thankfully they're not out yet. So apologies there for my mistake, but we're hoping to see them in the major finals as usual. Lunex, though, on his own, quite solidly in that top spot in terms of qualification, but losing out on a teammate right now. Not ideal. Down to just solo. WX has been playing very well, and Lunex needs to try and find this refresh to get those materials up. Unfortunately, below on the surge, gets the knock, but gets knocked out as well. Lunex and WX out of the lobby. Their fate is out of their hands. Have they done enough? Potentially they have.
And for Truly now, too, left as a solo. He'll be trying to ensure that he can do everything in his power to try and muster up whatever placement points they can find, but Hyper now in a very similar position to where Robin was in the last lobby mini. How many placement points can he actually secure as a solo, especially when so many other teams are just starting to bear down the zone pools closer and closer? Shark and Teeny just barely managing to come out on top in this last little exchange. A little bit more messy than what they would have hoped for, but at the end of the day, It's them sitting with 5 eliminations. I mean, they were never pressed over whether or not they'd make it. We know that this duo is locked in for the Major 1 Finals, Minnie. It's all about just who else might they try and prevent from being in that slot.
Yeah, it's just got a feel for the other teams that they're fighting. I mean, you know, they're the team that have no pressure on them, I suppose, in this lobby. They can do whatever they like and they'll still be okay. But Waze and Effexy sort of on that cusp going into this game. So being below Storm Surge here is really not ideal whatsoever. And 175 below is not a small number either, so this is why they're just getting very, very aggressive. Unfortunately, they don't have the heals to try and maintain their health. And the more that the Storm Surge damage ticks away at them, the more troubles they're going to have at actually finding that damage. Waze is going to have the pizza to keep himself alive for a little bit. Nicely done from Effexy to actually get a little bit of damage there, but it's not going to be enough to put them above. Only 6 below now for Waze. These are the moments that could end up qualifying you to the Major Finals or force you into the last chance qualifier. Now above the Storm Surge threshold, so Waze is okay, but at what cost? He's got no heals left.
It's almost like kicking the hornet's nest, though, when you're getting those search tags onto a duo like Shark and Teeny. They're still sitting in a position where they could potentially look to just end the run here for Waze, and as a solo, the lobby might also just be able to really pick them off along the way here, but with that Storm Surge just continuing to crash away at his HP, 204 below now. He doesn't have any heals, but the more desperate you are, the more obvious it becomes. He tries to immediately jump to the box here, but gets clipped along the way. Cringe and Twi not even gonna allow him. They're just gonna realize that there is a body loot llama about to appear above them for a little bit of extra mats, but instead Waze separate himself just a little bit. But one more tick will do it. Somebody's gonna find all those mats eventually.
That's tough. That's really tough. That's the worst way to go down in the last game. You want to give yourself at least a chance, you know? They were outside of the threshold, only just. They were on the cusp, but it's going to be a horrific end for them, unfortunately. They're going to have to go through the last chance qualifier. It's now Panzer and Yapko just inside of that threshold themselves. They're going to make the most of this game. They're going to want to make the most of this game. 2 very experienced players, 2 players that know how to operate when it comes to the Major Finals, so they want to make it there. It's 105 points right now, puts them in a solid position. Its height is just a complete and utter mess. There's 2 or 3 teams up there right now. It's Artist and his teammate that looks as though they're the ones that are going to be taking control of it so far. But things are going to change so much, Taco. Things can change so much in Fortnite. Things can change so much in the final game of Heats. You never know what's going to happen.
I know for sure that Artist and Hero, they're not going to be able to hold on to this hype for much longer if they don't get a refresh of some sort. So Artist is going to opt to drop down, see what kind of fight he can actually build here. But Pink, Sato, frontside low, just quiet as can be, but they're going to need to find a refresh themselves too. 5 eliminations, though. They have definitely been getting active in this last lobby, and we know for a fact, Minnie, that they need this win more than anyone, or as much as teams outside of that first 2 pages of the leaderboard were given. And this might just be their moment, but with Shark Teeny now looking to overtake height. Shark, though, loses a huge chunk of his HP. That's going to force Teeny to actually drop down. Wants to get a little bit more up close and personal, but no, instead goes right back up to provide a little bit of backup measures for Shark just in case. But Panzer, Yapko, there still is no time to relax. They have an uphill battle still ahead of them, even though every single bit of placement that they continue to climb here, 119 points, they still want to finish strong. They've had a really rough day today, Minnie, but closing things out in this lobby and securing their spot in the Major 1 Finals, that's all they're after.
Yeah, they're just trying to squeeze out as much as possible. They've been squeezed out of the zone right there as Yapko gets sent miles into the storm, manages to make his way back in, but he has no HP, no health, no ability to heal back up there for the white HP. Cringe and Volker, you can see on the bottom of the screen, they're looking pretty strong as well on these exact same amount of points as Panzer and Yapko. So 2 teams in a very, very similar situation. Not ideal for either of them, but they're trying to squeeze out as many points as they possibly can. Panzer now almost as solo as Yapko is down to such low HP. It's going to be dicey for them in the middle. Yapko takes some shots, takes down Jeezy, and that is now down to a solo for Yapko to solo clutch.
It's crazy to see some of these players just getting sent back into the storm from the overdrive grenades, but Pink still left kicking. Ultimate Low has just started to collapse on itself non-stop, and it doesn't help when you got Shark and Teeny overhead. But Yapko with the elimination onto Midro. He secured so many points along the way. 143 is where they'll fall, but it might have just been enough. Pink and Sato, only Pink remains. Pink, he's got to try and close things up, but 103 and he's fallen. Volko and Cringe, they knew that they needed a big match, and they might have just been able to deliver here, Mini Miner. Kiri and Cuddy, just last couple of remnants here on the Ultimate Low side of zone. Kiri just gonna keep trying to press through, but knowing full well that there's still a handful of other players left to contend with. It's Truly, and then of course the duo of Shark and Teeny, and now Truly just waiting. It's only moments, I think, before he's eventually forced to clash. As Teeny, it's actually only Teeny. We have a full lobby of solos, I just assumed. It's crazy to think about, but Kiri still holding things together here on the low ground. 148 points, so that's definitely within the threshold. Twag, every single one of these teams, Mini, looking awfully secure.
Yeah, looking good for consistency or victory. Why not do it in style here in the final game of Heat 1? Twek still maintaining high ground, trying to hold on to as much of that as possible. Still got the materials to do so. Kiri takes down Teeny down on the low ground as well. That's his 5th elimination of the game. Who's going to take the win, though, and go into the Major 1 finals in style? Kiri takes the shot and secures it right there at the end to make their way into the Major 1 finals.
It was definitely a bit of demolition derby, it felt like, in the underbelly of the low ground, Mini Miner. But at the end of the day, Kiri and Cuddy have managed to get the job done. Finding a Victor Royale is better late than never, and they've got to be feeling great knowing that their position is 100% confirmed for the Major 1 finals. It's been a phenomenal day of these 5 matches. Can't say thank you guys enough, but now we've got to get back to the desk.
Thank you so much, my friends. An amazing job casting it up as always. And what a finish for Kiri and Kotti. I mean, that is truly one of the better feelings in Fortnite when you're able to win the final game of the Heat to make it in, especially when you were sitting just outside qualification range as well, man. That must feel amazing for them to cut.
Yeah, it was interesting because they started off the day decent and 11th place, and it just got worse. 17th, 28th, 35th. But all of a sudden, the last game, they take the win.
Yeah, huge. Like they're 23rd before this game. So, you know, they either needed that kind of big, top 10 that we're looking for, and none of the games they played prior to this were in the top 10 at all. So absolutely by far their best game when it actually mattered.
And I think when you look at, again, how the day went for them, right? It didn't seem like it was, you know, the smoothest of days for them. And I think there will be plenty for them to adjust and work on as they go towards the finals next weekend. But they ain't gonna worry about that for now. They have to just celebrate the dub.
100%. I mean, they had an on-con drop. It was kind of like a split at the bottom east corner of the map. So I'm curious to see how that translates to the finals now, and if they end up going through with it, or maybe trying to mix things up in those last moments. But hey, props to Kiri in those final moments to clutch it up as a solo. You can see he was tapped in for that last shot. What a way to qualify yourself. I hope we see a reaction to that later.
Yeah, and this is a beautiful look at this list of our game winners today. All 5 game winners. We had Focus and Thomas starting out the day as our, you know, reigning sort of winners from the play-ins, the #1 seed. We had a surprise win from Hutty and Fishy. iDrop and Marius with great performances. Hari and Cammy, obviously old teammates of iDrop from last year. And so, again, a worthy group of winners. But we obviously know these guys have qualified, right? We saw the wins happen. We saw the celebrations. What everybody wants to know and what everybody wants to see is who are our 10 consistency teams. That is what I'm waiting for. I'm nervous. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at it. We're looking for that top 15. So again, we knew Shark and Teeny were safe. Cringe and Twy, we knew they were in with a good shot. That good game from Twek and Midro would have done it. And wow, as you can see there, some shocks, some surprises. Reese, Vico and Malabuka in 16th.
I cannot believe that. Resub Analytics coming in with the point estimate of 125 off the dome on my head. Would they'd be okay? But even bigger, they got keyed in that final game by Shark and Teeny. This was a clear attempt by Shark and Teeny to make Vico Malabuca not qualify. We saw this fight drag on for so long, and I think that just shows the caliber of team. I was going to say that Vico and Malabuca are, that this team is scared of them, but of course, based on their performance today, the doubts are going to be there.
No, this is devastating. I was celebrating originally because my sleeper pick qualified, but then I saw number 16. Are you kidding me? I mean, Yapko Panzer are obviously feeling good, though, barely making it in that top 15 cutoff. They did a great job, especially in those final moments, kicking off the day. I mean, the only match where they got top 10 was that last one.
Guys, I'm sorry. I'm still just in disbelief. I know it was a long time ago, but if you rewind your brain back to the start of this show, we were bigging up Vico and Malabuca as a, a big name team that people expect to come through and, walk through this heat with ease. I asked both of you throughout the day, are we starting to get concerned about their performances? And you both told me, no, it'll be all right. It's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. It is not okay. Vico and Malabuca have to qualify through last chance qualifier next week if they have any chance of being in that Major 1 final. This is not what people were expecting whatsoever.
I am concerned. We have champions. We have legends in the EU scene not qualifying, now forced to get an attempt once again in the last chance qualifier. I honestly am almost speechless, Reese.
I think my looking at the match history, I'm not entirely surprised because they were 5th, 15th, 12th, 23rd, 38th. Each match quite literally got worse. And if you know anything about Vico Malabuca, they're emotional players. If they get triggered, if they get frustrated, things just don't go well. And it seems like based on the downward trajectory of those matches, there was probably some lost mentality in there somewhere, which is a shame to see.
And look, they weren't the only talented team to miss, right? We highlighted Zynox and Truly as being a potential dark horse team, a team that could come through and surprise people. They barely missed out. Pink and Sato, I know Frankie somewhere's out there, teary-eyed, she's upset because Pink, again, is gonna have to wait till that last chance qualifier to try and make it happen with Sato. So some big names. Look, we did say Heat 1 was the most difficult heat in EU, and I think we're seeing the effects of that. Big, talented players not making it through. They're gonna have to do it in last chance, which we will be watching, by the way. So, make sure you're following the channel so you can check out our show for that next week. Again, big congratulations to the people who did qualify. I think we saw some talented Fortnite. I think Heat 1, for sure, we can expect to see some of, the better FNCS performers in that final come from Heat 1. But Takata, lots of lessons to be learned from Heat 2 and 3 tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you have the duo that had the most final appearances in the whole heat not making it, I mean, it shows experience isn't everything. We talked about the new generation coming in, and Heat 2 is where that new generation is going to be showing off. We've got Seti Rax, we've got Velo playing with Savage, we've got Ghost playing with Payson, so I'm curious to see in Heat 2 how they perform.
Absolutely, but let's be real. I'm not there for Heat 2 and 3, so they're not as good as this Heat 1.
You know what? We will miss you for Heat 2 and 3, Reese, but it's been a pleasure to have you here today with us. Thank you guys for, making my first time hosting such a breeze. It's been a lot of fun. I will be back casting tomorrow, and so yes, if you want to watch more high-level Fortnite like we've seen today, we have Heat 2 tomorrow, Heat 3 on Sunday. Still so much action. If you haven't had enough of Fortnite for today, there's going to be NA later on with Zeke and the gang over there watching some of those games. So I've heard Heat 1 in NA is going to be an amazing heat. So be sure to check that out. It's been an absolute pleasure. As my good friend Frankie Wood would say, sound out.